This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
It is 6:03. We will now call to order the November 18th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to our regular agenda. And we are going to take a few things out of order this evening, I believe. So Ava, would you like to direct us to where we're going to start?
Yeah, I think we're going to begin with 6D, the enforcement order against New England Forestry Foundation at Hartnett Manhan Memorial Forest.
Great, thank you. And Ava, do you want to give a little update on where we are with this?
Yeah. So per the commission's order at the last Conservation Commission meeting, we issued the enforcement order on October 28th, 2024. Go ahead and project that now. Commissioner Metrick, welcome.
Well, thank you. Later every meeting, eventually I won't have to show up at all. And do the numbers.
You're not getting off the hook that easy, Dan.
Okay, so as the commission discussed at last meeting, this was the enforcement order that was issued. This is Form 9, and then there was an attachment A, which gave some specifications as to what the commission was looking for. The main due dates that were relevant in this attachment had to do with November 7th, which we've passed now by 11 days, where the recipient had to have straw wattles installed at the toe of slope to prevent further erosion or sedimentation into the river. And then we were expecting a restoration plan by today. Included in the installation of straw wattles there was to be improved signage prohibiting digging anywhere along the site. And that was the direction of this enforcement order. And then there's a series of images showing the extent of the damage, which is
Sure.
So this was issued to New England Forestry Foundation by email and by receipt requested mail on October 30th. After receiving no information from them, they did not get back in contact with us and reaching out many times over the preceding weeks. We received a letter from the attorney of the New England Forestry Foundation, which all the commissioners have had an opportunity to read. Should we give the public an opportunity to read it at this moment?
It's pretty long. I'm not sure if it's necessary to read the whole thing into the record, Ava.
Okay.
Do you have copies?
There is a copy I'm happy to share.
Ava, could you post it to the website?
You can post it to the website.
Thank you.
The letter is right here. This is like a one-page from the New England Forestry Foundation. To summarize the gist of the letter, is that New England Forestry Foundation is asking Easthampton Conservation Commission to rescind the enforcement order. essentially a summary.
Is the attorney present?
I believe the attorney is not present. Is the attorney for New England Forestry Foundation present?
No, online.
We did request a representative of New England Forestry Foundation at tonight's meeting to discuss the restoration plan.
So I did speak with Attorney Lyons on, I believe it was Friday afternoon. And I guess just a bit more context. For those who've been following this, this was brought to our attention by the public as a public concern because of the digging that was happening and the extent that it had gotten to. And Ava had previously reached out to the New England Forestry Foundation, and our understanding was that they wished to get in and actually use some equipment to repair the holes and things that we're seeing and kind of put the soil back where it ought to have been to stabilize the slope and then do some additional planting. So last meeting, we had discussed the fact that the only way to do that in an expedient fashion within the bounds of the Wetlands Protection Act would be to issue an enforcement order, which was perfectly appropriate given that this does constitute a violation. But we had talked about it as sort of being a means of being cooperative with the foundation, which had expressed an intent to get in and do work as soon as possible. When I spoke with the attorney on Friday, and if you read the letter in more detail, they have clearly taken offense at the fact that we've issued an enforcement order and feel that this is the opposite of cooperation. So I believe, I can't really see who's in the room, but I think we have Mark Stinson with us.
Yes.
Great. So Mark, I think I don't know that we've ever, in my recent memory at least, been in a situation like this where usually people are quite cooperative once we issue an enforcement order and we don't have to deal with the question of what to do if they're not. So I think we're looking for a little bit of guidance here. The last thing that the attorney said to me on Friday was that he was going to recommend that no one attend the meeting. He was certainly not going to be there, and they're basically just kind of digging their heels in and hoping that we're going to rescind the order.
So, enforcement is discretionary on the part of the commission, but is the only way that the soil can be restored is by the use of equipment? That's a question. Or can it be done by people with wheelbarrows and shovels and stuff?
I mean, it was certainly displaced by people with wheelbarrows and shovels, but my sense is that it's extensive enough at this point that it would take a lot of people and a lot of loads of wheelbarrow runs to potentially replace it that way.
Okay, so if they wanted to use equipment, the only way to do that would have been through the issuance of an enforcement order, because you cannot verbally approve the use of equipment in the riverfront. Just can't approve it verbally. It has to be in writing. So
Right.
Either for conditions, determination, or enforcement, or emergency permit. So we do have what's called, a friendly enforcement order where both sides agree to, the violator agrees that, yeah, we want to restore it. We're not going to give the commission a hard time. Yeah, we'll accept the enforcement order and we'll go out and do the work per the enforcement order. So, I mean, there's no back and forth. Everybody agrees the right way to do things to restore. So yes, the enforcement order would have been the appropriate method for New England Forestry to go out there and restore, to move the soil around with the use of the equipment.
Yeah, and that was our intent. We didn't have anyone from NEF actually present at the last meeting. And because we knew there were 3 weeks between meetings, we didn't want to delay them further. So we went ahead with this. but I think that not having them here to talk it through with the whole commission seems to have, we seem to have lost in something in translation. So I'm not quite sure what to do going forward here.
If you withdrew the enforcement order, doesn't give them the right to do anything on it.
Right,
It's a static situation. So if they
Right.
want to do something, they can either submit a notice of intent, which I don't agree with, or you'd agree, or they'd come up with a restoration plan, you'd issue the emergency permit, they do the work, the restoration work under the enforcement order. I mean, the problem is right now you're entering winter, the ground's gonna be frozen, it's gonna be snowy, no vegetation's gonna take. So all you can do right now really is move soil around. Everything else is gonna have to wait till spring.
mm-hmm,
I would say that, I don't know what our minutes from the last meeting say exactly, but it seemed like we were concerned that there hadn't been the level of responsiveness from the property owner to the issues if we were hoping there would be. So, yeah, I think we intended it to be a friendly enforcement order to allow them to do the work to repair the site, but there was also a sense of like, we've been talking to them for a while, and there has not been much activity. So this maybe will help get some activity. Is that your recollection too, Julie?
yeah, I think there was concern that the signage was still unclear. There were still some signs up from when they were historically allowing digging on one side of the river. And so we wanted to make sure that all of that got tidied up. And we were hoping to get some erosion controls in place too before we got any storms coming through. I think Ava, sorry, go ahead.
You can always withdraw it, and then over the winter, when there's nothing on the table, have them come in, and you guys talk about it and just go over what they want to do, what you want them to do. And by the time spring rolls around, everybody's all set to go. But that just means that there's nothing out there stopping the previous work from people continuing except for their signage.
Which the signage has dramatically changed, right? So they have added significant signage closing off the area entirely to any kind of usage. This is just like from the road.
That
So
would stop me.
yeah,
Steve Mentupsky, I live at 18 Mineral Street. I'm a neighbor of the Hardette Manhattan Forest Foundation. And over the years, there's always been a rock hound. And since the COVID, it had been brought to, through the internet, through the attention of rock hounds that, like as far away as Pennsylvania, that they're allowed to go on that property. And what they do on the other side of the river is park down at the end of my property and walk across my property to get to the lead mines. And this has been going. I've lived there since '76, and in the past, it's always been very respectful. But with this increase of people coming in there, it's no longer acceptable. It's terrible. There's people crossing my property and like I always used to say to them, as long as you're keep it neat and clean, don't leave any garbage behind, it's fine. But now they're coming in, they're taking stuff out of there like by the bucket loads, and it's just not right. There's damage done on that property, but they have to get over there through my property. They could go around, but it'd be a much longer journey to go around my property to get to where they're digging. and there's like the antiquity, the historical value of the property, like the tore apart these foundations. Not many people know where I know where there's this horizontal chimney, some fragments of it, and this brick oven, and this huge retaining wall. Well, the retaining wall has been a little abused and knocked down a lot. And I understand that's kind of what happens with time. But I don't think it's right to let those people in there anymore. It's just, there's too many people coming in there. And it's not right. I don't like them. I used to think it was okay that they crossed my property, but I no longer want that to happen.
Do you support the new
Posted your
signage?
property? Have you posted your property?
No.
Okay.
Do you support the new signage that they put up that?
Yeah, I do.
property?
I do. As a matter of fact, farther down Loudville Road on right adjacent to where those signs got put up, I went down with the owner of that property, Jarvis, right here. And we put up 3 more signs along Loudville Road. And like, if you want me to put up more signs, but maybe that's not my responsibility. Maybe that's your responsibility.
Well, it's the landowner's responsibility, right?
Well,
New England
well,
Forestry
Well,
Foundation.
the people that go over my property and didn't get onto the Hardin Manham property, the signage has to probably be posted there where they bring, like a bomb went off.
Right,
It's
right.
terrible.
Yeah.
I think Steve's talking about the opposite side.
Yeah, the opposite side of the river. Yeah. I'm adjacent to Mineral Street in my property. If you have a map, I could show you my property.
Yeah. Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just briefly, I actually am a rock hound and I've never dug like that. I was disgusted along with Kathy with to see how people were, I don't even dig, I ground collect, but that's actually my happy place with my dog. I love that long trail where I can throw the chucket and he runs and he swims. And if he gets thirsty, he can take a drink. And I'm personally brokenhearted. And I actually posted on the New England Rock Hounding site how disgusted I am that, you know, these people have destroyed it for everyone else by digging under trees, by digging at all, but especially right next to the river underneath roots. It's really heartbreaking for me because that's like my happy place. And now the happy place is gone. And it's hard to find a place as perfect as that to go with your dog where he can swim, and you can even swim in the summer when it's hot. And just, you know, if you see something on the ground, because I actually cut and carve and polish rocks. So to not be able to ground collect, and I can't even dig if I wanted to because I have neuropathy and I mean, the last time I tried digging anywhere, I couldn't walk for 2 days. So I just ground collect, but it's just, it's devastating and I understand the desire to close it. I wish there was another way to set up severe ramifications of anyone caught digging so that the public could still actually enjoy the happy place with their dogs. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I'd like to just put that out there. I don't think anyone should be walking across your land to access that. And anyone who is even caught in there with a shovel of any kind, even a hoe or anything they could use to dig a hole should be punished severely. And if you make the punishment severe enough, I would say you have to be pretty freaking stupid to go against that. And the thing is, who would check? Well, as the public, I personally would call if I saw somebody, even as a fellow rock hound. And I have to tell you, a lot of rock hounds are really wonderful people, but I'm pissed about this.
Oh, one more thing. There was a car parked there today.
Right.
From people walking down along my property and then across my property to where they do their rock hounding.
Right.
That was bad. And like, but I don't think I'm the one that's obligated to enforce the no trespassing on the height that being here Forest property.
Do the commissioners want to discuss this more amongst before we reopen it to public comment?
Well, we don't have, we're not in a position to do enforcement to, you know, if someone calls, who are they going to call to say that someone's violating whatever rules that are put in place? You know, we're not going to be out there enforcing the rules, and I don't know who you call.
Private property rights.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's not our property, to be clear. I think everyone understands that, but this is not an Easthampton conservation property. This is a property owned by another foundation that I believe is based in Vermont. Is that correct, Ava?
In Littleton, Massachusetts.
Okay, sorry, in Littleton. One of the staff people we were talking to, I think, is based in Vermont. So and our enforcement order did not require the property to be closed. That was their decision. We had asked for them to get better control on the digging situation. And I guess they felt that the best way to do that was to close it off entirely. So that was not our decision or our request, just to make sure that the public understands that.
So that's not something that can be changed or modified to put stricter.
New England Forestry Foundation would be the party to bring those concerns to as the landowner.
Okay.
I think, Ava, if you would, if you could go to their letter, I think one thing that is worth looking at in there, and hopefully all the commissioners had a chance to read it, from the letter, it sounds like they are, well, so they talk in that sort of middle paragraph on the second page about how they had envisioned bringing in a small excavator. But then I think further down, they suggest only doing plantings. Did I read that correctly? So one of the things I think I wanted to get input on from the rest of the commission was whether we feel that the soil could be left as is and the restoration could just be plantings, or if we really feel like the soil needs to be repaired. Or replaced.
What plantings? What are you gonna plant there?
It would be some kind of erosion control mix of likely woody vegetation to restabilize the ground. But that would be for New England Forestry Foundation to develop a restoration plan.
Yeah, the hope was that they would have a plan to us under the enforcement order today to tell us what they were planning on doing. And then we could have, kind of.
They use native species of trees and shrubs. This could be a minor exempt activity. You don't even have to, they can do without permitting.
If they're not moving any soil.
Right.
Right. So this was the original piece.
Yeah, it sounds almost like they're saying that well, they do offer to put the soil back higher up in the letter, but toward the end, they say that they think the river is just going to keep eroding the area and the soil, and that they'd have to cut trees to bring in equipment to bring in soil.
Sounds ridiculous.
It
does.
I mean, I think it's up to the commission, right? As Commissioner Musso was sort of asking, like at the last meeting, we discussed a hope for a restoration plan that would be more comprehensive, right? That would really try to kind of bring it back to some kind of restoration zone condition of filling the holes that we see in the letter, in the enforcement letter, and restabilizing the area with a more.
will plantings take at this time of year?
Not this time of year. It's not.
No.
Spring.
Right.
Seems like an impossible task. Really does. It's not feasible. It's woods. It's like no man's land, and it's just like the river comes through and washes stuff. But the problem is people are knocking down, uprooting root trees by the roots, and they're falling in the river, and they're falling on the property, but at the same token, a storm knocks down trees and uproots them, and
The rivers change every time you get a major storm, so
right.
how do you justify, yeah, okay, people did that, but the next, say, 2 months from now, the water conditions can change and that river can change. I've seen it many years.
Yeah, it's true. This is a considerable amount of exposed sediment on a pretty large stretch of hillside.
Just to be clear, so when I'm just thinking about this side of my mind, I'm picturing the Loudville Road side of the river, but you're talking about the other side of the river, right?
Yeah.
In terms of it being
As soon
no
as you
man's
go
land, and
over
very
the,
difficult access.
well,
Yeah,
it's not that difficult in that they just did logging down there and they cut down lots of stuff, and that's a normal thing. That's what that land is for. It's for forestry. And periodically, every 50 years, they can go in there. I mean, they probably did it 10 years ago, but this time they really did a large cutting, and it probably won't be done again for 50 years. And that's normal for a forestry plot of land. And there's probably access with a certain kind of equipment to go in there, but it's gotta be an expensive thing to do, to fill in some holes with that machine.
All right, I'd like to focus discussion at the commission for a few moments to decide how we'd like to proceed with this. Do any of the commissioners have opinions?
Well, I think that certainly the river might erode the banks over time anyway, that most riverbanks are stabilized to some degree with trees and vegetation, and that given that these have been dug up, it does seem like there's a lot more opportunity for the sediment to get into the river over the winter. So some way to stabilize it before we get a lot of like winter storms and mud and runoff in the spring. Something seems like it would be a good idea before winter, before the ground freezes. I guess I'm curious, Julie, when you talked to the attorney, was there any sense of him understanding that we were actually trying to not be as offensive as he perceived? No.
No, I really wasn't able to get that message through to him. He was very indignant that we had issued an enforcement order.
so Mark, what happens if somebody just is like, I'm just gonna ignore your enforcement order? Like, what are the options in all this protection acts?
You have a bylaw, right?
No.
No,
Well, Cassie went through a few of them. I mean, the option is I could touch base with the attorney or New England Forestry, see what I can do to help. Smooth the way. And if not, you can always ask DEP assistance to have us take the case. Whether or not we take it, I don't know.
what, Mark, I know you haven't seen it in person, but what would your thoughts be on leaving the soils as is and only doing plantings?
Well, I have to see how high, the river would come up during flood stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you've got a nice bunch of leaf cover, which should mitigate some of the pounding of the rain. It's gonna settle out. It might take a couple of years if you don't bring soil back. But it would be nice if the holes could be filled before the fall. I mean, while we're in fall, before the ground gets frozen. I mean, it's 50 degrees today. Put some erosion fabric with the seed mix on top. You know, it'd probably be done in a day or two. I don't know why they're reticent about working with the commission. Or are they reticent, or are they just upset that they received an enforcement order? But that's the only way you can approve work. You'd have to issue an enforcement order to approve any work there.
Right. So maybe a good next step would be for you to try and give them a call and see if you can get that message across, maybe coming from DEP, assuring them that this is something that is reasonable to do as a friendly measure would get further than.
Yeah, that would be great.
And Mark,
Yep.
please let me know if you'd like to visit the site, because we can access it from upriver and come down, and you can see quite a bit of
Well,
it.
as long as
from
we
the-
have permission, because right now it's posted no trespassing, so I can't go on without permission of the owner.
Right.
Even though we have an active enforcement order?
No, correct. Active enforcement order does not change people's ability to keep anybody off the property. It's still, they still have their Fourth Amendment rights.
Okay.
So, no, can't go on without permission of the owner.
All right, then I'd say let's try that. Have you give them a call, see if we can get anywhere. I think in the meantime, it makes sense to leave the order in place, because if they do decide that they want to put together a restoration plan, this is still going to be the only way to move on that expediently without them having to go through a whole filing process.
Okay, I'll
Thank
touch
you, Mark.
base with Eva tomorrow.
Thank
so
you.
much. Appreciate it. I do have one more public comment that was submitted to me in writing for this. I'm going to project it. I'm going to project it. It's from another neighbor who expresses similar sentiments to those we've heard in the room tonight about the specialness of this place.
Is this under 61?
No, it's under a different. It's under a.
ATR, anything?
It has a forest cutting mechanism. Let me see if I can get the name of it.
I think the land was donated to the Hardnet Manhattan Forest Foundation in 1952 by Mrs. Hartnett of Lead Mine Road, you know. And what my understanding was is that land could never be changed from that status.
Let's see.
Which is a designation under a forest cutting plan. Forest stewardship.
You can always talk to the assessors. They would have a better understanding too.
Mhm.
It's tax related. You know, usually it would be under 61 if it's tax related, but
Right. That's a Forest Stewardship Council designation.
okay, I'm not sure what that means.
I think it just has to do with the way that they log it.
Okay,
The kinds of.
okay.
Um,
I agree fully with that letter.
I'll include it in the minutes of the meeting.
But again, it's their property, so.
Right. Thank you, Ava. All right, do we need to continue to take items out of order?
I think the next one that I believe we should take is in order, which is item 4A.
Okay, so 4A is a public hearing for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by GZA Geoenvironmental on behalf of Crown Meadow Corporation at Holly Circle and Crestview Drive, map 166, lots 75 through 80, 83 through 89, and map 171, lots 14-1, 14-2, 15 through 22, and 25 through 29. This is Mass DEP file number 1510327. Do we have someone here to speak on the applicant's behalf?
You do not have an easel. Yeah. Hello, my name is Jen Claver. I work for PGA Environmental, and my colleague is also on here, Joe Rogers. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are working on behalf of Matt Gall, who is part of Crown Metal Corporation. Sorry about that. We'll go through the colors. So we are submitting an previous notice of resource area delineation for 28 parcels along Holly Circle and Crestview Drive. I do want to make a note that no work is proposed at this time. This is just a resource area determination to confirm the wetlands on site. So for some background, the site is a previously approved subdivision that was reviewed by the Easthampton Planning Board in 1992. And the landowner has been paying taxes ever since that. The site is primarily an agricultural field with an existing dirt road, and there are no structures on site. The site was delineated in November of last year by wetland scientists of GZA, and on the eastern portion of the property, you see these two wetlands, and these connect to a larger wetland system off-site. And just for some reference, this green is a wetland and over the blue. And on the other side, a bank resource, this blue right here, was identified. And there are three kind of shoulder wetlands along the area. So White Brook is this stream right here. This is defined as a perennial stream by the USGS topographic map. And the applicant did not believe that this meets the definition of a perennial stream, as in the last 3 decades that it's been seen dry on numerous occasions. So we followed the procedures outlined at the Wetlands Protection Act, CRM 1058 2D, and documented the river as dry for 4 days over a 12-month period. And that data was collected between September 15th and the 21st of this year. And I believe I sent you all the memo. Yeah, and I can present that. We sent the videos, but I could send more photos if needed. The 7 pages of photo log wasn't enough. So what we determined on these days, that there was no observed water or flow, and we determined that this was an infinite stream. These observations were during a non-drought period. Obviously, a month later, we are now in a drought, but when the data was actually collected, it was a non-drought period. The drought was effective, I believe, October 1st.
Yes.
And this data was collected prior to that date. So it is considered a non-drought period. And I did observe all the culvert crossings going up the stream, and there were no blockages. They were pretty large culverts that went in many directions. We don't know where they went, and the neighborhood around it is assumed to have city water and sewer. So there may be a well there, but it's not really assumed in that area. So due to these, we are requesting that Conservation Commission identify this as a intermittent stream and overturn the perennial river. And once again, no work is proposed at the site. We are just asking for approval of the wetlands present on site. And once again, this is the wetlands, and the yellow is the 100-foot buffer zone. So since we are calling this an intermittent stream, you're not saying that there is a 200-foot riverfront area. Anyone have any questions? And we did get DP comments. I don't know if you want to go over those. Yeah, they're right at the top. Right. Into the DP comments and the address. Yes, so the first comment is that the study has to be over a 12-month period. So the previous one we filed was over a year, so we did recollect the data over 7 days of 1 year and a non-drought period. The second question, I'm not blocking this for anyone. We're just saying that the area is in zone 2 of a public water supply, and we are acknowledging that that is a case. And
The next one was saying that there was not sufficient information. That's why we went through and did this a whole year later, because when we originally submitted it, I think we only took a few photos in a few areas, but for this one, we do have a map that we took it from the bottom of the property, 4 locations, going from the bottom culvert location, middle of the system, and at the end of the system. And we observed that there were no water. And I did join the applicant on one site just to make sure he's going to correct areas. The last one.
It's peer review.
Yeah, the last one's just, Conservation Commission to do a peer review if they like.
I wanted to ask the Conservation Commission, when this was first reviewed, did the commission have an opportunity to conduct a site visit at this property?
I do not think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we just continued it right away because we knew we didn't have the sufficient
Sufficient evidence.
information. So.
Right. Yep. So I think we need to schedule a site visit. And typically, as suggested in item 4 from the DEP comments, with a project this large, typically we would enlist a third-party review to confirm the delineation. So I suspect if other members of the commission are in agreement, that we'd want to also get that process started to solicit an RFP for that.
We have a comment.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and comments. I'm Dan Kretzer, 32 Holly Circle. I'm in a butter.
Yep.
Could you hold that map up? That helps. My first question is, this was started a year ago, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this project was approved by the zoning commission in 92.
Yeah.
So, but there's no
They
project,
just haven't done
there's no
any work
imminent
on it.
construction.
Nope,
So
there's no
why,
work
so
proposed
why
at
the
this time.
investigation now? That would be my first question.
They're just looking to get the resource areas determined on site if, they were to go forward.
Which
or
would
not.
lead me to believe that construction's imminent, no?
Something's planned.
Something's planned.
Any construction project would have to be reviewed by the Conservation
There'd
Commission.
be another.
Okay, the other thing I want to point out, the area to the left, wetlands, and to the right. If I'm not mistaken, the one to the left is at the,
This is the White
Brook Plains.
one. Yep.
White Brook Plains Conservation, and the other one is with Stina.
Yeah, it's like way up north, but
Right.
these wetlands do connect to
So
it.
this project would abut conservation area already.
Mhm.
So something to be considered. And my third comment would be, if it was 32 years ago, this would have to be revisited. For the size, the scope, the number of homes, the density. Am I correct, or is that a zoning board?
Yeah, that's a zoning board question, but the zoning board of appeals would be reviewing this project. Yeah,
If there is.
if there
Yeah,
ends up being a
At
project.
this time,
So-
we're just
Right.
going over the wetlands resources.
So then could you just clarify? I mean,
Mhm.
I know projects are inevitable, but what is the reason for this now if no construction is planned? I guess that's my
I
question.
cannot comment. You could ask Matt. He is not obliged to answer, but we're just here to get the wetland determination on site.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so for the benefit of the public, an ANRAD is a process that basically locks in the wetland delineation for a period of 3 years. And so if they have the wetland boundaries established now, then they know that when they go to present a project, they know where they are relative to all the resource areas. So oftentimes when people are planning to do a large project in the future, they'll want to best understand that they really know where all the wetlands are so that they can work around the resource areas appropriately and be able to tally their impacts accurately. So I would agree that there probably is something coming in the future within the next 3 years, but that would be reviewed entirely separately under an NOI filing.
Right. And would the commission be looking to maybe enhance or change the project to include more open space? Or, I think would be part of the commission too, of the open spaces, no? Okay.
Yeah, the project already has been approved.
32 years ago.
And for 32 years, My family's been paying taxes on each one of those paper lots. So, we're doing this because in the future, we do plan on wanting to build. On the property.
As proposed.
As it's been since 1992. Yeah.
Any questions?
Want to set a schedule for a site visit now, or we want to?
If you were thinking of doing a third-party review, could we do it at the same time so we don't
Sure.
inquire additional
We
costs?
support a
on
peer
that?
review on this project. Big
Yeah.
enough, yeah, it's large enough. So yes, I guess we support a peer review on the project also.
It is notable to impress that we are currently in a drought status, so overcoming the presumption of perenniality can't occur during this time period.
No,
'Cause it
the
was-
data
Yeah.
The data,
has
yeah,
to be taken outside of it.
from before.
So you can still vote on it as long as the data was acquired outside.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a question about this designation as a intermittent versus perennial stream. Are you saying there has to be no visible water through that area?
No, observation of no flow.
No flow. So if the fact that the culvert going under Crestview was dry, that means it's an intermittent,
That's a part of the criteria.
part of the criteria. I've been through that area many times in the summer and I noticed standing water and water in the culvert.
You're correct, right?
So I'm curious about this definition because it seems like we're kind of on the edge of what might make intermittent or not. Also, if the wetlands, that's the purplish greenish
yeah.
lines.
Yep.
When were those mapped?
That was mapped in November of last year, 2023.
November of last year.
Mhm.
Having walked through the area, it seems to be a little narrow.
Let me tell you.
Than what
Lot of
may
vines.
really be there, but I'm not a wetland scientist. I am a botanist. I know there's a fairly extensive wetland area in there.
Yep.
The area-
This whole area, there's a nice hill.
Yeah.
So this was delineated based of the first observable slope, topographic break. So along these lines, I wish I had the topographic on here, but it slopes down. So more or less at the
Right.
end of the slope is where the wetland and stream start.
Would
And
my
then out here is all
It's a huge detention basin, huge detention
huge
basin.
wetland.
Yes.
It goes north and then it goes north to Holly Circle, I believe it's the road. And just.
My other question is the yellow highlighted line.
Yep, that's the 100-foot buffer area.
So would that allow building and landscaping up to that line?
It would have to be permitted. This right now, we're not permitting work. We're just saying that, this is going to be the wetland, this is going to be its buffer zone. And if work were to continue in the future, a notice of intent would have to be filed and that would go over the next permit of what can and can't be built there.
That buffer zone that's crossing over those properties there, those proposed properties, is extremely boggy in the spring. It's downright saturated.
So this is precisely why the commission typically requires a third-party review for a site of this size, because we know that we are going to be confirming and locking in the wetland line. And so that allows us to hire another independent consultant to go out and make their own assessment of the wetland line and determine if there's anywhere that we feel there might be inaccuracies or adjustments need to be made. So that's the process we're looking to go forward with.
My concern would be that the development of those lots, those last 3 lots down, would have a significant impact on the conservation area there and that wetland. And that is fairly undisturbed. A lot of that's fairly undisturbed, valuable wetland in that area.
We appreciate your
Your
comment.
point is noted, but at this point, there is no proposal for development. And so we can only assess the wetland boundaries and whether they're accurate or not.
But this commission would have to give approval to allow development of those.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
correct. But
Will
that
be
would be a
filed.
separate filing and a separate process.
Commissioner Butcher?
I would just, I know we've visited different points along White Brook for different projects over the years, and I'm sure we've made determinations on whether it's perennial at like Park Hill Solar Project site and probably Holly Circle, which I think is just downstream. That was before I would have been on the commission, I think, but it'd just be useful to know what we said for either one of those sites and anything else that we may have done. Do you remember going on a site visit out here, out in this area, Jay?
Yes, but I don't remember the results of it. That's
there. Okay.
Question on Crestview. Is there a three-sided box underneath there?
Yeah, very large call.
Okay.
Like walk through it, like.
So,
stand
you
walk through it.
can include the bank resource area on the
Oh, connecting it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
to show the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, we
Just
could
don't
fix that.
forget the inside of a culvert. is
Yeah,
Still
still
jurisdiction.
Sure.
That is a good note. So yeah, we'll be sure to connect this and make sure this is accurate.
Yeah, because you might
Very
throw
big
that buffer zone.
Yeah, it might move this a little bit. Sure to update that.
The yellow on the right side of the map is also a buffer.
Prior to the commission conducting a site visit,
Mhm.
will the flags be numbered in the
Yeah.
field?
It'll be numbered just like this, and then we would come out with you and we'd have a GPS so we could kind of
Sure.
a little around. It'd be a lot of crawling, so just be aware.
And do we have a copy of that now?
You should, yes, yeah. I just color coded it because it was a little hard to read.
And that map, just to clarify, is the same as the original filing.
Yes, yeah.
So would the commission like to begin the peer review process for this property?
I think we agreed, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Just a question, how long does that typically take from start, like month or so?
You're getting really good at writing.
Yeah, this
I have
changed the
we've not
names.
gone through a traditional peer review though yet with myself as agent. Is a month standard?
Yeah, so typically it takes us a few weeks probably to solicit responses. And then it all hinges a bit on the timing of our meetings because we have to review and select someone. And then there would be a request for funds to be put into escrow before we can actually hire them. And then we usually give the consultant probably at least 3 weeks or a month to do the review. It depends somewhat on the size of the delineation to be reviewed. And then we would have a meeting to discuss their findings. And that again is going to hinge on our schedule. And of course we have holidays coming up and potential winter weather. So it's a little hard to give a precise timeline for what that might look like, but I would say you probably are looking at a couple of months total at least.
Okay, just good to know.
Would you be able to do a wetlands review in the winter without plants?
No, soils don't really change.
The soils, but
Yeah.
is it also based on vegetation?
Or
Or
it's one of the
soil?
parameters, but soils is usually the one telling sign, and you can see remnant. And in that area, especially over here, it's all red maple, and it's pretty obvious with the.
Oh, not entirely just red maple.
Well, there's other stuff, but
Yeah, there's a
you can
lot.
generally.
A lot of Fern, turtlehead,
Mhm.
rushes, sedges in that area.
But
Yeah.
as you can see on those lots, on the board and where the red lines come, most of that, most of everything
Yeah.
is all field, that is being farmed right now by a local farmer. Soybean was planted this year. A local farmer in in Southampton is farming it.
Yes.
So they're really, most of the lots right now are really on the field.
No, my concern would be the three lots.
It would be on the wetland scientists who, the third party review, if they're comfortable, they doing a wetland delineation in the winter, but we typically do it. So
I was-
there's
I
snow
was
on the
just-
ground.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
As a botanist and person who's gone
You
through
can see
that
remnant
and
things, but it would be based on the other wetland scientists if they're comfortable.
there are a lot of wetland plants along that,
Mhm.
along White Brook.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly well vegetated area in there.
All right, so Ava, is there any information you need from the commission to go ahead and get an RFP put together?
I don't think so. I'll follow the format that the commission has issued RFPs for INRADs before. So I'll follow the format probably as the one that was done for 385.
Great, okay. And I think it was requested that we hold on a commission site visit and combine that with some of the other efforts with the third-party review.
Yeah, it would save money for the client,
Sure.
because it's a big site.
Sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Site to take determinations.
All right, so then I think we're looking for a motion to continue this item.
Motion to continue Crown Meadow Estates and RAD until
December 2nd.
December 2nd.
Second.
All those in favor? I have no idea who's sitting where. Ryan,
Ryan, aye.
Buttrick, Buttrick,
I'm here.
Carr,
Aye.
Weeks.
Aye.
August. Motion carries. So we'll revisit this on December 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one I suggested that we take out of order is 6B, 476 East Street. Although we likely don't have anyone here to speak for it, so we could keep plowing along and come back to it and go to 8.8. Is someone here to speak for 6973 Loudville?
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello.
So the commission, several meetings ago, requested a representative from the project team at 6973 Loudville to discuss the infiltration basin.
Yes.
And the changes to the walling on the infiltration basin. So that's the premise of what we're here for.
Yeah, no, understood. Absolutely. I mean, as the commission knows, through the construction process, we came back to the commission to sort of make a couple revisions to that basin, make it larger, and modify the basin with an outlet. The stone on the banks was done by the developer, just to sort of help mitigate some of the erosion aspects and to help stabilize those banks. They did it, basically, on their own accord, kind of. But, after analyzing the stone, I've been out on site, I've seen the stone, the banks. It doesn't really change the functioning of the basin. It is just a 3/4 inch stone that goes from the bottom to the top of the bank of the basin. It's permeable. It's, it still lets water through, but obviously it won't be vegetated with loam and seed. It's more of an aesthetics versus a functional at this point. So that's really, we haven't done, the as-built survey of that basin. Kind of wanted to run through a few storm events. Obviously, we haven't had many of those lately, which is a change to when we were kind of in construction when it wouldn't stop raining. The bottom was proposed to be left sandy just so that we could promote that infiltration, just kind of, some of those challenges we were having during construction, kind of leave it sandy to help it help the basin infiltrate. But the stone on the side is, that's exactly what it is. It's just like a 3/4 inch stone that you would see in any probably typical landscaping scenario on the banks.
Do commissioners have any questions about this? Like any other resources shown?
So if the bottom is intended to be left sandy,
Yes.
is the expectation that it won't really vegetate, and this is what we'll be looking at in perpetuity? There won't be any vegetation growing in this basin or on its slopes?
Yeah, so the slopes, correct. So the slopes, you'd have probably some through the maintenance process. If there's any woody vegetation or weeds kind of growing through, you could, whack those down. But the bottom was, without that loam, topsoil layer, and that was just left out because we were just concerned about getting water into the ground and not blinding the basin before it even gets a chance to infiltrate here. But if something does grow, through the maintenance process, they would take it out, remove it.
What kind of basin is that supposed to be?
This is an infiltration basin.
Shouldn't we bring up stuff?
Yeah, so the original proposed plan for this infiltration basin had it loamed and seeded on the walls.
Okay.
So the applicant is here to discuss an unapproved change to the original plan.
Right. So the basin was modified to the revised plan. Just background. It was modified to the revised plan. The only, I guess, deviation is the loam and seed on the banks versus the stone, the landscape stone that's there.
Why was the stone put there?
It was just a decision that the developer, had envisioned that the banks would perform better with the stone and help prevent erosion into the basin, because that was, one of the things that was kind of made us kind of go back to the drawing board with some of the erosion from the construction of the basin. So they just put the stone on the banks on the walls of the basin.
Well, the whole point of requiring the banks to be vegetated and stabilized with vegetation would be to prevent that. And, that's an acceptable functioning method, and that's what was approved. So I certainly don't buy the argument that the stone was needed to prevent erosion, especially when they hadn't even given it a chance to vegetate and let that serve as the erosion control.
Understood.
And I just took an erosion and sediment control class where they specifically stated that the loam and seed would actually infiltrate better than the gravel. If I'm remembering correctly, than the crushed stone.
It's alive, that's why.
Yeah, it's alive. And it soaks up. So.
Yeah, like I said, from a functionality standpoint, obviously, water can percolate through the stone and make contact with the soil behind it. So, it can get into the ground. I guess the idea of the infiltration basin would be to get the water into the ground.
Well, and the vegetation would soak up some of the water too. Yes.
And this would be under the stormwater, I guess the permit granting authority for the stormwater permit. The basin did, all the revisions that were made, outside riverfront area and jurisdiction area down there.
Other comments from the commission?
I don't know. I mean, the operation maintenance plan that we approved doesn't address this, right?
No. Not stone walls on the banks. Nope.
A few months ago, you were here proposing a change because the basin wasn't infiltrating very well and it was flooded.
Correct. So the basin through construction had, seen a significant amount of rain and sedimentation that has since been, removed and taken out and replaced with, well draining sandy material. It's just, the stone on the banks is something different than what was on that plan.
Which I will say to the commission, because I think the last time we spoke about this, the commission was wondering what the material was like on the bottom of the basin, and I can confirm that it was sandy, though we haven't had a rain event in quite some time to be able to check this infiltration basin.
So if the stone is allowed to stay, what is going to keep the stone from gradually just moving all the way down into the basin?
Well, the stone is at a 3-to-1 slope. Obviously, maintenance and, if someone walks in there, they might kick some stones down, which can be addressed through ongoing maintenance of the basin itself. But, it's at a relatively, the slope isn't so steep that the stone should just start, migrating down into the basin.
But if there's water in the basin, the water will transport the stone down into the base of the basin.
So if there's a large rain event.
Which there have been, which is why this was created or modified.
If that does happen, I would say in the unlikely case that, it does happen, it should be addressed through just the ongoing maintenance of the basin itself and repairing or moving back and replacing the stone that has migrated. But again, if the stone does migrate to the bottom, it won't hurt the functionality of the basin itself.
So this is a request to amend.
This is an active project update.
Right, so it's basically a request to amend the order.
Well, there
Right.
was no request to.
Well, this is not an approved BMP.
Yeah.
So technically it's a request to amend to allow it to remain, right?
Yeah.
So is that
Just-
what we're being asked to decide?
So just to clarify, there would be amend the stormwater permit and the conservation as the permit granting authority.
So is this under an
Right.
order of condition?
The stormwater plan is part of the order of conditions,
So it's
so it
amendment.
would be an amendment to the order.
Stormwater permit under the storm, Easthampton
Yes.
ordinance.
Yep.
Okay. So you got two permits here.
What do you think, Mr. Stormwater?
Yeah, Mr. Stormwater.
Mr. Stormwater. Basement buffer zone or
The half of the basin is in buffer zone of the BBW.
Right, so we'd also be allowing that to remain unvegetated where it should have been vegetated.
That's generally the front part of the view you're looking at there, the sediment forebay. The majority of the basin itself out back there is beyond the 100-foot buffer, but yes. Yep.
I mean, the commission is also allowed to deny this change and request that the plan is completed as.
Yeah.
Well, if,
I mean, I think something, oh, sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, we're, I guess at a point in the year where, we wouldn't want to do anything, before, any growing seasons come back around in the springtime. So, check it, feel it out, see how the basin functions as it is. We're going to get some rain here, hopefully the end of this week, and, just see how the basin functions with the stone and it's tucked in the back there, behind the units. So I think that would kind of be a logical move right now, just to kind of see how it functions as with the stone on the banks, on the walls.
Commissioner Carr, what was your comment?
I was just gonna say that if we ask them to remove the stone and seed it right now, it probably wouldn't take
Yeah,
before
nothing's gonna happen right now.
winter.
Mm-hmm.
The commission could request it to be removed and sown in the spring.
Yeah, this is not designed for, what we really see, so it's not the design we approved.
Yeah, I would be in, sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna say, I would want to see a detail for how thick the stone was and what was underneath it, and, like a cross section that we would be like at least documenting, and also an updated operation and maintenance plan that addresses the thing. I don't love it. I don't like it at all, but I don't know.
But it may be the best thing to get us to spring right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would be inclined to deny an amendment but allow it to stay in place until spring when it could be removed and we'd know that seed would take.
I was gonna say, just because I don't love it or like it doesn't mean like it's not gonna serve the purpose if it's maintained properly. And even though it's in buffer zone, it's like a stormwater basin, so it's not like we're like expecting it to be delightful habitat or whatever, but I don't know. I guess I'm up for seeing what happens over the winter and then deciding.
I don't think it's a BMP type that we would approve if it came before us presented like this on a plan.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really inclined to set a precedent that we're going to allow stone covered basins.
Fair point.
Would the commission still like an insert of the depth of the stone for the winter time?
Sure, we should know what the data is.
Yeah. Maybe just if you're saying that it's gonna come out, then just like a verbal description, just,
Would that be provided, Felipe?
Yeah, that's easy to provide. I just, yeah, it's, I guess from, functionality, I keep going back to the functionality standpoint. I understand the aesthetics of it, but from a functional standpoint, I think it doesn't hurt the basin that the stone is there. It's not aesthetic as, a loam, as a seated wall would be, I guess.
Oh, well, I guess that remains to be seen.
Right.
And that's your opinion. I mean, I laid some gravel down in this dirt area of my driveway, and now most of it is now at the bottom of a small hill that has barely any slope, and it's just been transported by rain. So I think in the long run, you're actually this is just my opinion. I'm not an expert, but that you're gonna end up with most of that gravel down in the bottom. But and you'll spend more time maintaining it than you would if you just seeded it in the spring. That's just.
Yeah, I'm trying to help the town right now manage like invasives in riprap. It's not big riprap, it's fine riprap, and the town really doesn't want to use herbicides, and I think we have restrictions on that here, and it's like extremely difficult to deal with. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of teeth gnashing going on.
So
yeah, I think there are a number of arguments against this design.
I have to look back at the history of this project, which is not a happy one. And I was actually impressed by how they responded to their earlier accident. Yeah, it's within the buffer area. It's very close to the brook. The more green there is, or whatever comes up from the brook, the better. And some detention basins are pretty lively places.
I think.
All right, so
Okay, yeah, okay.
I think we have an answer.
Would the commission like to set a timeline on this or revisit it in the spring.
Could put it on the April agenda.
Yeah, that was gonna be my suggestion, and then we can see what the weather's doing and if it's ready to move forward at that point or not.
And in the meantime, Philippe, we would love a detailed, like a description of the
Just a
depth of
description.
stone.
Okay.
Depth and size of the stone.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
We have to vote on this.
I don't think so because you're not,
It's just,
there wasn't a formal request for a change.
Right, right.
That was sort of what was on the table, but they didn't submit a request for that in writing.
it's just kind of a
Right.
compliance update.
Yeah.
Almost,
Yeah, exactly. That's the item on the agenda that we're sitting under. Okay.
I'll go throw my pen out. Oh, it's leaking. I think Pal and I brought the pass out for fumes.
Great. Just wanting to check in with Commissioner Busa, on your available timing this evening.
Yes, I apologize. I'm gonna need to step out in about 15 minutes. So Jay, I may need you to take over as chair.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Folks there to speak to the pond embankment?
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah. What,
Paul Davis.
yeah, Paul Davis. Perhaps just in the interest of meeting the needs of the commission, we take 9C out of order. Speak about the pond embankment.
Agreement or?
We can just take things out of order.
That sounds good. Yep. Let's proceed.
All right, hang on, word.
Thank you. Paul Davis, and the resident town, also past consultant with GCA, just full disclosure, who's working with us on the steering committee for National Icon. And that's how I serve currently, but DZA, who was my former employer, retired 5 years ago, has been doing designs with us to try and improve an area of bank, which was previously approved by the Commission for Stabilization, and it is gradually becoming more decrepit and needs some help. So I don't have enough for every member here, but perhaps you can share this 3 copies of photos. A couple of them taken today and one from a little bit earlier in the season, showing the platform. It's opposite the boat ramp, if you're familiar with the pond. It's an area which is high public visibility, high public use. There's a park bench up above it. People fish there from there all the time. And there's a timber cribbing there, which is holding up the bank. And that is gradually failing. And it is cantilevered actually out towards the pond, currently probably almost a foot from top to bottom. And this is only about 4.5 feet high or so. So that's a pretty, at some point it will fail and it will crumble into the pond. We'd like to be in front of it rather than back of it, picking up the pieces. So we've asked GZA to provide a design. That's a picture with some vegetation. The pictures I'm sending around now, when they did the survey work, they just clipped those brushes down to ground level so they could get a better look at the picture. So, yes. But you can see, actually, bring that one, just hold that one up there for a second. Can I point to it? You can see that it's actually separation there of the timber right there. And if you go to the next one, I think it showed how this is, well, it doesn't show it as well as one of the pictures I sent around, but it's actually cantilevered this direction towards the pond. So the fill and back of it is gradually pushing it out. So this won't last forever. It is still high public usage, and we would like to get it improved for the area. The resource area there obviously is the land on the water, which is right along the edge of it. There is about 6 inches to less than a foot, certainly, of soil against the bottom of the timber. So the bank resource, which would be, mean high water, or first break and slope, but presumably mean high water in this case, since it's controlled by the dam, the elevation controlled by the dam.
that resource is actually just to the pond side of the timber itself. Nevertheless, when they do the work, I mean, let's face it, we're going to be in the water. We really can't avoid that if you're going to do the job properly. So GZA has done a preliminary design, and this is just a concept plan for us to consider. We haven't gotten back to them for comments yet, but first I wanted to talk to the commission, get any initial reactions. I realize this is not a permit hearing. We're not asking for a decision, but if you have any initial comments, it'd be really welcome. And we would bring them back to our committee and then on back to GZA sequentially to that. So the basic plan for it is to take the existing conditions, remove the timber from that area. They would do that. They would put basically a temporary cofferdam, which is just made out of sandbags, basically, in the water. And then you pump that area dry, or dry-ish, I should say, so that you can work without having, constantly being in the water. There is stone that was placed in there under the original permit. That's still there. And that was a 1999 permit, so almost a quarter of a century ago. It was surprising since I was involved in that project back then. But anyways, so that's still there. That will be retained. The only thing that's going to be replaced basically is the timber structure itself. But we think since that didn't really hold up that well, as much as we'd like to use stone this time around. So what they've proposed is coming back with a proposed stone wall bank stabilization. And they have some design plans for that in the subsequent sheets, which we don't have to get into the weeds on this too much right now, because that will come before you as a permanent application. But the idea would be to make something a little bit more permanently stable in this area, so we're not faced with this another 20 years from now trying to repair it. And we think that this is a high visibility area, high usage area. It's part of the Nonotuck Park. We think that the commission, as much as the towns, the city's people involved, would like to keep this ongoing as an ongoing use. So at least we're hopeful of that. Other things to think about. I looked at the access way. Do we have enough, do we have to take down any trees to get access? And the good news is no, because there's actually an old road going into there, which is more than 10 feet wide in all locations between tree to tree, which would be plenty to get a loader type, rubber tire loader type of thing to get in there and do the extraction and bring in any materials that need to be fitted into place. As I said, we have not gotten back to GZA at this point in terms of our comments. We've had some informal discussions. I myself might like to consider, rather than have a 4.5 foot wide, or tall rather, vertical embankment, could you step it back a little bit? So you come up maybe 2 foot lifts or something like that. Maybe that would be a little bit friendlier, a little bit less stressful, and a little bit less movement and material in the future. Anyways, things to consider. They're the engineers, I'm not. But it's just, we are in this initial mode of generating ideas. So any feedback you have on that line would also be greatly appreciated. So with that, I don't have a lot more to offer at this point, but, I have provided plans to the commission. These plans, you have them in PDF now, your files, and I don't know. I have a couple of hard copies if anybody wants them. But at this point, we're just looking for feedback.
How would the stone wall be held together? Is it a dry laid?
It'd be dry laid, yeah. Yeah, just all natural materials, basically. The idea would be, and I think the original material was PT, so slightly improvement over that.
And where would the water go while you were dewatering?
They do have a detail on that. They have what they use is they call it a dewatering bag, but basically it's like a big filter, like filter material bag that you pump into, and then it collects all the solids, and then the water drains out from that. And then obviously we'll have silt curtain, and we have the cofferdam area. So if it drains back into there, you're still containing any secondary, stuff that the filter bag didn't capture. That would still be within that work area. Yes.
And this is for my education because I, don't work in this field. Would it be possible to do this work without having the heavy equipment getting into the pond itself? Would they be able to stay outside of the
they'll be
pond?
working at the shore side. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would limit the disturbance to the pond.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing they would need to lift the sandbags, basically there's a large sandbags, if you've ever seen them, but they come with like almost like, like bags you used to carry, groceries, only at a larger scale. And that they would place them down, put them side by side, make sure that they're
Okay.
formed well together.
And this is another question for GZA, not for you, but do they envision this being a 3-day project, a 3-week project? Any ideas?
That we don't know, and quite frankly, GZA is probably going to be able to predict it, but it comes down to the contractor when we go out to bid on this, because it's a city project. We will, they will give us the information, and we'll have different, usually big contracts have different criteria, what you look for in terms of, how fast can you do the work, sort of thing.
And what time of year would it be?
That again hasn't been determined, but we would like it to happen next season, next 2025. And given that, we haven't even gotten to the point where we have permit plans yet, hopefully early 25, we can get a permit before you guys. And then maybe sometime in the summer or towards the fall, maybe we can be under construction. That's fingers crossed. But
And the last time this came before the commission in 1999, it came through in a full NOI and order of conditions. So the commission will have an opportunity to review those as written in 25 years ago.
yeah, the resource involved, by the way, is I just did a quick look. It's about 35 linear feet of bank, which obviously is artificial in the sense that it is, well, it's small earthen material against pressure treated lumber. But depending on where you actually would call that line, within 6 inches or so, you're either on pressure treated lumber or on, the slight vegetated shoreline that just formed along the bottom of that. Interestingly, just as a footnote, when this was originally permitted, the resource area bank was delineated out here because the water elevation by the dam was not as high. So the stones that were put in place in the pond at that time were actually right at the limits of bank. So when they did the repair on the dam subsequent to this project originally, they actually raised the elevation of the pond about a foot probably. So
you can lower it.
Well, maybe, but nobody wants to risk, let's turn the spigot on the dam and see if we can turn it back on again. Well, anyway, so that's what's going on. We're excited by the prospect of getting this improved and repaired, and we hope we can get that enthusiasm here. Obviously, we're hoping to get fundraising, maybe look for grants. So a lot of things in motion. We can't actually have a contractor start work until we have money. So doing things like that.
About the timing, because I know there's like a big huge lady slipper population that comes up there in the spring.
Right on that area, in that.
Yeah, that's right in the island. Yeah. You get to that big heavy machinery.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't treat it well. There's one other thing I would like to bring to your attention to. We have a couple of projects, but this one you may be more as familiar with, but it's right opposite the cemetery. And I didn't submit this to you, I apologize, but took a look at it today, and one of our members of the steering committee asked if we could look at this as well. So this is the platform, the viewing platform that's right opposite the cemetery. If you've been there recently, there's caution tape on it. They don't let anybody go on it, because if you look at the second photo, it's basically it's hanging in mid-space. There is no support. Basically, the concrete pier underneath it cantilevers out towards the pond, and the post that was there is missing now.
This is right out there.
Yeah, so there needs to be a repair to that. What we're hoping for this one, that can be done under maintenance as opposed to an actual permit. So kind of would like some feedback on that from the commission. We realize the other one, we got to rip stuff out. We're going to be in the water.
It's going to be an NOI.
This one I think we could possibly do without even being in the water.
Just pull it back in.
Yeah, exactly. You cantilever a little bit. You could bring in some screw piles maybe. I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but I think there's a way to do that without actually being in the water.
Would the commission want to see an RDA for?
Well, maybe we should just do a site visit first and get a better look at it. Because I know the location, but I've not seen that condition underneath, and maybe we just look at it and make a decision on and not have to go through.
Yeah. Well, I'm not asking you to go out right now. I'm throwing this out to you so you won't be surprised, but at some point, obviously we'll be ready to do that. Like, the steering committee is one of several, entities in the city management that need to be involved in this. It's not just us.
Sure.
So we see it's an issue, the building department is, I presume it was them, closed it down for safety purposes. So a lot of heads need to talk to each other and make sure that, okay, this is what we want to do and this is how we want to go forward. Now, what do you think, guys? Right. But, that's sort of the approach that we're taking, but I just thought I would throw it out on the table right now, just so that you would see it and know we're concerned about it too, and would like to see that moved on. So that's all I've got for you. So if there's anything else, I can answer your questions, or if you need to reach out to us at any time and you think about something, please do. Okay.
I recently walked out and saw the wall, the first thing you presented.
Yeah.
And I literally just said like a couple weeks ago, wow, this is gonna have to be replaced soon. So.
Yeah, originally they were looking at some of the other areas that originally were permitted by the commission for the 1999 project, because some of those are kind of like, maybe they need some help too. But this was the biggest one, and this is the one we had the money for. So this is the one we started GCA looking at. There is one other thing on that site also, and you just reminded me about it. There's a place where the fishermen who go there and use the place all the time go down a steep embankment just as you're walking down to that platform from up above. If you look to the right, there's like a path that goes right down to the shore, but it's like on a 30% slope.
Yeah, they're eroding that.
Yeah, it's eroding away, and we were wondering about putting in just some steps in there. We're thinking like maybe either curbing that they've ripped out of Union Street. Okay. Kind of just step that in so that it is something that is more stable and less likely to erode. That would just be a buffer zone action in a currently disturbed area. So we're thinking we might add that into the mix. Okay.
Should make it part of the same thing so that.
Yeah, the whole point is to stabilize it.
Sure.
And to keep public access, obviously.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Thank you for updating the commission.
Yeah, she probably.
We did, yes. She's out in the field right now, so she had a tighter timeline. So I believe the other agenda item that we have folks here for is going back higher up on your agenda, 5B 65 Lovefield Street. We have a request for a partial certificate of compliance. I appreciate your patience, Greg Haas. Thank you. So we received a request. Let me pull it up. The file is in front of you. I'd like to pull it up, and this one you probably want because you might want the larger. Two copies of the article in here. The request.
Almost have done a site visit here, so we're pretty familiar with the property.
So just on behalf of the public and to remind the commissioners, this is a request for a partial certificate of compliance due to the 2 years of outstanding riverfront mitigation area reports still required by the commission. However, as far as I can see, all other components of the request for a certificate of compliance are in order. So we have the letter from an engineer saying that the work was completed under the order as written. Several of us conducted a site visit, saw that the work was aligned with the order. These are images also from showing the area. This is the riverfront mitigation area during the growing season. The whole area is signed with these conservation area signs, or that was part of the order. And this is the as-built as well. And there's the large one.
So I don't think I've been on the committee when we've done a partial certificate of compliance. Does that mean that they still leave up the erosion controls, or just, the new owners would just need to come back and verify the vegetation?
We discussed removing the silt fence and
Right.
leaving the straw wattles there
All right.
for the
That's
season, right? So I don't know if the silt fence has been removed at this point.
Straw wattles are there.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
And then there's 2 years, for the new owners that they'll have to comply with.
The vegetation, the
Right.
revegetation.
And those 2 years of reports will need to be received until the full certificate of compliance can be issued.
Yeah.
Other than that, as far as you know, everything's been submitted that's required by the order. Everything's in compliance.
Yep.
Yep.
And the first year report on the vegetation, on the mitigation report was favorable. The commission reviewed that a number of meetings ago. You can see some more images from our site visit if the commission's interested. We have not looked at those yet.
And I think we talked about the new, like, that it would be part of the sale of the house that the new owners. are
Yeah,
working on.
they'll have to comply with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It runs with the deed.
Right, runs in the deed.
This was an area where we spoke about removing the silt fencing and leaving the wattle.
Just because there's some steep banks behind that area.
And if commissioners recall, and as is evident from the as-built, essentially this entire project is in buffer zone. This is a pre-existing house that the footprint hasn't changed. But the house was essentially entirely rebuilt. Which is why these signs say conservation land, if you were wondering that. Traditionally, I think the commission would have this say buffer zone, but it's all within buffer zone.
Right.
So this is the extent, the limit of lawn that is allowed under the order.
Questions, concerns? No. Good. Would someone like to make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance?
Okay, I will move that we issue a partial certificate of compliance. For it to be partial, are there certain?
Yeah, so I do.
That has to be in that motion.
So this is the form right here, partially filled out. But on this sheet, it describes the components of it that the applicant has indicated have been completed. So that would be the thing for commissioners to confirm that they agree with that.
Okay, so I mean, I'll just, make the motion such that certification is consistent with what was documented here. Is that adequate?
Your motion.
Probably.
I think it's
I'm trying to make this smooth for people.
I think so.
Sure.
Do you want to read the components of the partial?
Some highlights and open.
Okay, so partial certification, only following portions of work regulated by the above reference order have been satisfactorily completed. Projected areas or work subject to this partial certification that have been completed and are released from this order are construction of a single family home, site stabilization, establishment of a riverfront mitigation area, including first annual compliance monitoring report, have been completed in accordance with the order of conditions issued for the project.
That's such a good motion. I'll second it.
Right. We'll call votes. Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
Commissioner August. Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So commissioners can sign this, right?
Sure, if you wanted to start on that end.
Sure thing.
Given that we have Mark Stinson here, can I ask you, under the ongoing conditions section, so the rest of this, everything that's not enumerated under here is still relevant in their order.
So what's left?
What's,
Put it that way.
yeah, what's left is the 2 years of vegetation reports.
Okay,
Monitoring.
so you can add that
That's what I
if
thought.
you wanted to. Because, you know, let's say the property sold and the potential new buyer says, okay, but the only one left. So you can't put it down. Yeah.
Okay, so let me pull up the actual
But
order.
if this was mitigation under 5G, then the final order would, you'd have an ongoing condition.
Right,
It's 1058.5H.
right. But that's not until the final order is issued, right? But right, you may want to reference this, you may want to reference our condition. This is their order. You may want to reference condition 53F. Sure, Ryan. Under the so on the second page. So I think that box needs to be checked. And then under the ongoing conditions.
Under the partial certificate.
Yeah,
Anything else?
well, this was what I was wondering is perhaps under, because the remaining component of the order, the ongoing condition. I mean, there will be an in perpetuity, the in perpetuity conditions will be referenced in their final order of conditions, but perhaps under the ongoing conditions on their partial certificate of compliance, it'd be useful to reference the component of the order that's not yet closed out, which is, as you can see up here on the screen, 53F.
Where do you want to put that?
I was thinking here.
So click, check that box.
Right.
53F.
Would it be appropriate to reference the in perpetuity conditions under that section?
You don't have to wait till you get the final.
Okay,
Close enough?
close enough.
All right.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Commissioner Ryan.
All right. Let's put that back there.
So I'll send a digital copy of you to you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thank you, Greg Haas. Thanks for coming. Okay, I think the other item on the agenda that I know we have someone here for is 8S 109 Everett Street.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Patrick Lord with GZA. Seem to be pretty popular tonight. On behalf of Kent Brothers Excavating LLC, they're the contractor for the cemetery expansion program for St. Bridget Cemetery. And so what you have before you is, and Ava, I emailed you a request letter around 6:30. So
Okay, I can pull that up.
So construction started in July of 2024 until recently when there's going to be a notice break in the contractor's schedule. So we've been conducting the third-party erosion and sediment control inspections in accordance with the town's stormwater management permit. We've conducted 19 to date, and we've been submitting those to the commission and the town engineer. To date, there have been no significant deficiencies noted. The site's fairly flat. We haven't noticed any discharges from the site. So what this request is asking you is to modify the monitoring frequency from weekly and or after following a quarter-inch rain event to monthly. The caveat on that is there's screened topsoil. So the land was stripped of topsoil, it was screened. So you have these two rather large piles. And what the contractor is asking the commission is to with the reduction in monitoring frequency is to establish erosion and sediment controls around those piles. So that would consist of straw wattle and silt fence around these piles. There was an idea to consolidate those piles. Although they're fairly large, so you'd be taking two large piles and making one very, very large pile, plus the extra effort to actually move that soil, and there'd be a greater chance of migration of that material from what's in place. So being out here weekly and after rain events earlier in the monitoring period, I have yet to see material really migrate off those piles, so I think it'd be sufficient to establish the ENS controls around each pile. Plus, we're going to have frozen conditions coming up soon too, with winter time, so we'll have that as well as a benefit to the pause and work.
So just to clarify for the commission, there's sort of two issues in front of you today. There's a question of monitoring reports and whether or not to change the frequency of those for the winter time, as there's no work proposed. As far as I can understand, there's not expected to be work before January 1st at the earliest. And if we have significant winter conditions, it will be not until the spring. If it's a mild winter, they may continue after the first of the new year. So there's a monitoring question, and then there's the question of how to handle these piles for the winter, because they are not, this is currently leaving these large of piles is currently not in allowance with their order of conditions to leave this large of piles of sediment for extended periods of time.
We have concerns that there was no protection around them.
Right.
It was just,
Right. And from my perspective, there's the question of, as Patrick stated, this site is pretty secured from an erosion perspective in terms of sediment leaving the site. They're a good couple feet below their erosion control in terms of the base layer. And when I've been to the site, I've seen the erosion controls all fully refreshed and up to date, as have Patrick's reports have indicated as well. But there is also the concern of windblown sediment with piles of this size. When I spoke with Commissioner Busa about it previously, she suggested covering the piles, even with something like a tarp, in addition to erosion controls along the base of them. But that
is Brickyard Brook just off to the left? Yeah. Or am I
no.
lost?
From this perspective, I think the answer is yes.
The brook is to the left here. Brook. I'm facing towards the pond here with my back to Everett Street.
Yeah, I guess I have windblown dust issues, or concerns anyway. Even with tarps, like you might, if it gets ruined, you might lose tarps, and like, it seems like you can see stockpiles with tarps and they get pretty tattered, but it seems like some kind of like winter cover crop might still, do a little bit of.
we're running out of time here fast though.
Yeah, I don't know.
We've had some really great weather, but
Might get winter rye, but it have to be watered.
okay. All right.
Well, watering would help keep the dust down too. So
But there's no moisture in those piles, so you'd have to water it.
Sure.
Pretty substantial.
yeah, I mean, the piles have been sitting there uncovered for about 2 months, and there's been a lot of really windy weather. And you're right next to some really sensitive wetlands and a pond. So I like the idea of stabilizing them.
Yeah.
Winter round.
I mean, if something's gonna be unworked for 2 weeks, that it should be seeded, by EPA regulations or whatever.
Patrick, is that something that could be watered to get the winter rye to start?
I mean, anything's possible, but you also have to remember that whole site is exposed. So if you're asking the contractor to make the effort and purchase the seed. I haven't seen any change in those piles as far as like wind erosion. I think the biggest thing would be if things were able to migrate off of those piles. So therefore, you know, the establishment of center erosion control around those piles, I believe would be sufficient. I mean, they're large piles. It'd be a great effort to do that. And there's been some natural growth of things that shown up on there, some grasses and stuff.
You don't have to have that as a general condition. If it's, you know, piles left there like 2 or 3 weeks, it has to be seeded.
Yeah, we did.
Well, the purpose is that those are going to be reused. So I'm not sure if the contractor would have to go through the entire effort again to screen that again, to get that vegetative material, you know, out of there if it's completely covered with seed and grass, because that's not the intent. The intent is to reuse this material to get the final grades for the cemetery.
So is tarping a better option then to protect it?
I don't believe tarping would be a great option. I mean, next thing you know, you have tarps flying into Lower Mill Pond. If you're concerned with the wind and securing those tarps, I mean, I have a wood pile and those tarps are hard to secure on that. I could only imagine these large piles would be more difficult, and quite a bit number of tarps. I don't think they make tarps that big enough to cover these piles.
What about putting some wood chips on them or something to help hold down the dirt?
I mean, wood chips, that slope is fairly steep. So if you're putting wood chips on that, I'm sure they would wash down similar to your detention basin that you were looking at earlier with the stone.
Sure, but that's why you have the erosion controls around the piles.
Right, but if you're putting wood chips on it, they have to come back and refresh it. And I think the idea is that they're not going to be back to this site for a while as they're working to complete other projects at the time. So I mean, I can't speak for the contractor itself, but if we're trying to think of ways, I don't know if wood chips would be the best idea. I mean, they might be able to put some, like, what do you call it? The geotextile, kind of the straw matting. Maybe that might work, because that could go up and over the piles easier, and they could staple that into the soil. That might be a good option.
I'm the site work contractor for this project. So what we were kind of thinking is,
Mike.
I know that.
Hey, Mike.
What we thinking was, if we put erosion control around the bottom of it, I was going to actually suggest the, you know, straw mat could go up and over the top of, you know, the top part. Maybe not the whole thing, because it would be tons of material, just to keep, you know, from wind or what, however, until we get some rain. That could be. What could be done?
Do we want to try that and then see? You know,
I think honestly, I think that might be the best option, because that way you have, you know, the contact of that straw kind of mat in contact with the soil that would prevent that from, you know, any of that wind-blown material from leaving that pile. I think that might be your best option, Mike.
So a wattle around the outside of the piles.
Right.
And a mat over the top.
Yes.
Does the commission want to maintain weekly reporting to check on those components of controls?
How fast would you have that in place?
We could have it done within a week or so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could can we continue the question of reducing the report monitoring till the next meeting, and then
Sure.
if all looks good,
Right,
we can
and that's-
reduce it
yes,
then?
Right, because if we do a site visit and that looks fantastic, then we could consider reduce the reporting then.
Do we need to see material?
I think we know, like, it's like an erosion control blanket, a straw mat. There's some conventional
So
ones.
it's gonna be multiple straw
Smaller,
mats?
it'd probably be smaller. There's no mat that would probably cover the whole
Right,
thing.
right.
So, yeah.
They're 100-foot rolls, like 10 feet wide. So you roll them out and staple them.
Stick them in.
And you imagine it going kind of like on this view, like going.
Probably just the top, couple rows on the top and then your barrier on the bottom. So that should be more than enough.
So we don't want regular erosion control.
I think also a regular,
Yes.
a wattle.
Around outside, yeah. So if you do those two things, then we'll do a site visit, take a look at it, and we'll make a decision at the next meeting. Hopefully.
Would silt fence be sufficient instead of the wattle? It's just, it's more cost effective.
Sure.
With silt fence in.
What do we think?
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have to really dig it in either and make more of a, a site problem, but yeah, as long as it's,
More plastic.
what's that?
More plastic.
Well, plastic is plastic, but, yeah, as long as it's, securing the pile, I think it's good. We'll take a look at it, after you do it, and then hope we can look at it again in the next meeting. Sure.
Will you let me know, Mike, when you applied the controls, and I'll come take a look. Great.
So we'll continue with the weekly monitoring and reporting for now, Ava?
Yeah, I think that's
Is
the
that what I'm
case.
hearing?
Until the next meeting at least.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to come to a consensus. I think that sounds like a great plan.
All right.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Have a good night.
Mark, you don't have to stay for a whole meeting.
Thank you.
How long's the
Thank you for coming.
Just, shoot me the information on the attorney
Yes,
so I
absolutely.
can give
Here.
him a call.
I can give you he's left me with several business cards, so.
Okay.
There's someone loose right there.
Is this the attorney?
What's that?
We don't want to stay.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Since this is our meeting of taking things out of order, is there anyone else here to speak for a specific agenda item? That we can take out of order?
Frank Demarest with Casey Path Development.
Frank Demarest. All right,
How you doing, Frank?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good.
so we can go ahead there next. That is 8:00.
Mark, thanks for stopping in.
Yes, thank you for coming, Mark. I'm much obliged. Okay, so just to overview for the commission and for the public where we are at in the RFP process. So the RFP was released and it was released to 16 firms. We received 4 submissions under that. The commissioners reviewed all 4 submissions based on a scoring criteria that the commission had developed with the procurement officer and other city staff. Each commissioner independently submitted those scores to myself without accessing the scores of the other commissioners. And now I have aggregated those results and can alert the commission. We'll discuss, or we will present the overall scores to the RFP. Is there any questions about the process before we move on? Okay, so the 4 consultants that we received the scores from were Beals and Thomas, BSC Group. I can make this larger.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And squint. I also just want to express my gratitude to the commissioners for your time in reviewing these proposals. This was a considerable load. So the 4 consultants that submitted were Beals and Thomas, BSC Group, Beta Group, and Weston and Sampson. These were, so each of the scores in the 5 categories that the commission outlined in the scoring guidance, each commission assigned a score to each of the 5 categories. I then averaged those scores and summed the averages. So we can go through the average scores for each category if the commission would like, but the totals are down here at the bottom. The commission had previously discussed that they would select the proposal with the highest score.
Okay. So 14 is the highest score.
14 is the highest score.
Okay.
I don't know if there's much to say.
Right. This process was partially undertaken to remove sort of the discussion component of it.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Why Dan Nitchie was removed from as a consultant?
For sure. So Dan Nitchie submitted a proposal, but he was not one of the 16 firms solicited from. And he was removed because of the commission's explicit desire to not solicit our proposals from firms with conflicts of interest in the project. So the fact that Dan Nitchie had worked for yourself as the developer under a different occasion for this particular project meant that he was not invited to submit a proposal for this project.
But he has more experience as the wetland consultant on the project than anybody else. He walked the land, delineated, did the reconstruction area. It's just very odd to me.
And I think that experience is certainly, valued by the commission, but the commission was more concerned with not having a conflict of interest for having
Well, I
worked.
have a conflict of interest with Weston and Sampson, so just.
We also had members of the commission that worked for companies that were excluded also. 2 different companies were excluded because there's members that work for those companies.
I understand.
As part of the contracting process, Weston and Sampson will have to sign, do you know the form, Commissioner Buttrick, like essentially saying that they don't have a conflict of interest in this project? If that form isn't able to be signed by Weston and Sampson to receive the highest score, we'll go to the next consultant.
Did we get a chance to take a look at these proposals or?
Yeah, the proposals, we have print copies right here. I can post them to the website as well. They're public record. Would you like to see the print copies right now, or would you like to see them on the website?
I'd have to see them online. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Can post them tomorrow.
Is there something we need to do with this week?
Don't think so. As far as I can understand, the next step is to begin contracting with Weston and Sampson and to receive the money from the developer to hold an escrow for the duration of the monitoring. I don't think there's a motion on the part of the commission.
What is this escrow amount?
The amount in their proposal is $81,225. That's an estimate, as all of these consultants, Weston and Sampson included, have a fee for service that will get charged as the project builds.
What was the estimate on Bills and Thomas?
I don't have those numbers. Off the top of my head.
$80,000 for monitoring services once a month is a lot of money.
And for presence for the construction of the stream crossing. So all of these proposals will be on the website tomorrow for the public's review. We can move forward.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I just wanted to thank Eva and the commission for all the hard work. I've been watching this from the public's point of view, and I'm really impressed with the efforts. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Where are we going now?
where are we going now? Okay, I think the only other item, and I was initially hoping to review this with Commissioner Busa still present, but I figured the commission can make a decision and refer back to it, is about the dates Though I guess now that Commissioner Moose is no longer here, should we do that at the end?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Something else.
All right. All right. So now we're gonna move chronologically.
Okay.
Well, now we're not chronologically, but in order of the agenda. Okay.
Left.
Yeah. So what is left is 476. Well, I guess we should motion to continue on 385 Main Street. I have no updates, but they have requested a continuance.
Motion
Okay,
to
that's 4B.
continue-
Wait,
4B.
Oh, 4B.
Motion to continue 385 Main Street for a second, or until we get a stormwater report, whichever comes first.
Is there
Can we motion until we get a stormwater report?
No, we should have just said.
It's just a motion to continue to December 2nd. So that's your motion, Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
In the second? Second. Roll call, Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks. Aye. And Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I was just trying to avoid future motions. if Unnecessary.
Yeah.
If we have something like this, particularly for a public hearing, that's just gonna be continued, can we just announce it at the beginning? Because there've been people sitting
Who've
there
been waiting to
waiting.
come. Yeah, we can, moving forward for sure. Totally.
I think we should just go in order, like unless there's a really good reason not to go in order.
Yeah. This was a pretty unconventional meeting. I was concerned with Commissioner Booth's timeframe.
Makes perfect sense, but this one.
That one could have been
3 second sort of.
For sure, yeah.
Continuance, and people wouldn't have needed to sit here.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
feedback. Yeah, moving forward, we can continue, particularly the public hearings. We can be attentive to those at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you. Okay, the next one I do have an update for you all is 476 East Street, which
Which one is that?
that is 6B.
So are we skipping 5A? Or
Yeah,
We already,
I don't think we did 5A, did we?
We did not do 5A.
they have also requested a continuance. I don't have it. I think they requested a longer continuance though, didn't they? I could be wrong.
But it's not really a public hearing, so we don't have to continue it. It's just.
and they expire 11/27.
No, 11/27/2025.
Oh, 25.
We
Okay.
requested that we granted them an extension
I
at
think
the
we
last.
push it out a
commission.
year,
right,
just so
right,
we don't
yeah.
have to be
Okay.
moving around.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need a motion for that, right? Because it's not really a public hearing.
Okay. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's fine.
Okay. So now we're on 6B because we've already done 5B and I don't have any updates for you on 6A though.
Sure.
So 6B would be the next one. 476 East Street, Commissioner Ryan, Commissioner Weeks, and I conducted a site visit. So to revise the commission of this issue. We've had an open enforcement order against this site since 2022 when they removed several mature trees on the banks of an intermittent stream. This intermittent stream is jurisdictional because it flows through upriver mapped BBW that were mapped when the house was built in the 90s as part of a Gall subdivision. So we, in 2022, there were 6 mature trees that were removed. The commission issued an enforcement order, and the residents of 476 East Street have been attempting to comply with the enforcement order since it was issued. So here I am up gradient in BBW. This is where the stream, the intermittent stream, crosses under their driveway. So I think just for the commissioners, it's good to take a look at the map here. Very odd site.
Yep.
And here we have the 1996 site that allowed the commission to know that this was jurisdictional. There's BBW mapped here in the 90s. So here we have East Street down here. We have the house built up here. The house, in order to have enough frontage on East Street, has these 2 like fingers that go down to the street. One of the fingers, perfectly logical, is the driveway.
Driveway.
The other finger may feel a little bit less logical. And on the 1996 map, it shows the drainage swale. So this image I have up here is the culvert that's underneath their driveway right here. There's another culvert up here where the driveway continues up to the house. The swale is shown as these two intermittent streams combined and flow out. There's a catch basin down here at the edge. So the primary new information for you that I have for you as a commission is that I think the swale is actually in a different place than it appears on this map. So, or at least the swale now is in a different place than it appears on the map. So let me get an image.
Well, they were trying to tell us that the swale got moved, right?
They were trying to tell us that the swale got moved. So here's the property pin right here. Definitely a property pin. Commissioner Ryan, Commissioner Weeks, and I all saw it. And the property pin is this one right here, the corner property pin. That's relatively clear.
Right.
But the swale, which shown on the 1996 map as cutting through the finger to the, to the right as I stare at it of the pin.
It's really close to the property now.
And it's actually to the left of it. So the swale is shown as coming out through here to the left of the pin on 472's property. So as a reminder, we took the enforcement order out against 476, which is this property that's up the hill. This property down here is 472. And the residents of 472 have been mowing the swale and for putting their grass clippings in the swale, which has been in violation of the enforcement order against 476, which required the swale to be allowed to revegetate. So here's the swale.
Did you say the enforcement order has been lifted?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So here's the pin. Hard to get a good image here, but so this is the swale. As you can kind of see the indentation.
And are you looking, is that East Street's
So
behind you?
East Street, exactly. East Street is down there. And where you see this man, this gentleman is the property owner of 472. And he did his best to basically have a straight sight line from the pin to the road. So if you can see where he is, that is where he estimates his property to come.
Then it wides out from there.
Exactly. And it wides out. So that tree, it has, if you look on the, actually that plan doesn't show it.
Yeah, there's another smaller.
There's another one. This is a long property dispute.
My favorite David Thoreau quote was, he was making fun of a distant relative of mine who was doing exactly the same thing. And Thoreau was a surveyor. And he was like, this guy, George Buttrick, is too big of a target for my survey accuracy or something.
So
like that.
the red area, and you can see how the edge kind of splays out here. So that's happening to the left of this man. He's sort of standing at the inflection point as best we can estimate.
But is his property also to the left?
So his property is to the to this.
To our left.
To his property's over here.
Yeah.
And so his property includes
That's where the
this.
mowing's been happening.
This is where the mowing's been happening.
And the
So-
clippings.
And the clippings. And so the trees are very distinctly on 476's property, who we took the enforcement order out against originally. And the original enforcement order was about the removal of these mature trees that were shading an intermittent stream as it flowed out of BVW to a catch basin on East Street. So the reason I think there's been a number of ideas proposed, and we have some different components of evidence that at one point the DPW did come in here and actually remove some of this vegetation. It was probably more considerable than what you see in this image here, but there was ice jams on East Street. There was it was flooding and freezing. And so DPW came in and they removed the vegetation along this swale to try to get the water to move along. That's unconventional for DPW. Just want to acknowledge that. The residents of 472 East Street believe that DPW actually did some earthwork, they actually moved some sediment. DPW has assured me that they did not move any sediment. It was only vegetation that was removed. However, I'm under the belief that this stream actually hasn't moved because the catch basin is where it was,
Right.
right? The catch basin is in the same location. It's the stream doesn't take like a sharp turn to get into the catch basin. My current belief is that it might have been mapped wrong on the 1996 map, and that the stream that's shown there to be on the little finger of 476 is actually on 472.
So do we need to transfer the enforcement order to 472?
Well, it's complicated, right? Because the original infraction was done by the residents of 476,
Yes.
which was the tree removal. And 476 has been complying with their restoration plan, i.e.
Trying to
letting the
Natural revegetate.
exactly. And so like I can show you some images of their section in here. So that's
right. We saw that.
yeah, you've seen this before.
Well, they were supposed to plant trees.
They were supposed to plant trees. That's true. And the trees have not survived for the most part. I found one.
One tree survived.
But is the reason the trees didn't survive partly because it was being mowed?
I don't believe
I
so.
think no, I think they didn't plant proper species. So this is like an example of what the property that 476 agrees is 476's property, 472 agrees is 472's property. I believe is 476's property. Everyone believes that it's 476. This is definitely the wetland finger. It is definitely revegetated, though with herbaceous material and not woody growth. Some woody growth. I think I found some poplars in here. But there's still mowing of an intermittent stream that's occurring.
472.
472 is mowing the intermittent stream. This is their one surviving original planting.
So can we ask 476 to plant some more woody vegetation and then take out a second enforcement order on 472 to tell them to stop mowing?
We can. I mean, I don't know if Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Weeks want to speak on the general sense of these residents.
Yeah, the general sense is we're feeling pretty put out.
Right, yeah.
And the reason they're feeling put out is that the commission decided to issue a cease and desist to them several months ago.
To who? Who's feeling put out?
The residents of 472, who I think we've now determined actually own the swale.
But didn't we also ask to have the grass clippings
Removed? Yes.
They agreed not to continue with grass clippings in that area, I believe.
But will they remove?
I think they agreed to not. I don't actually. I'm not actually sure what they've agreed to with regards to the swale. They want to continue being able to mow their property.
It's kind of a mess.
I'd like to be able to continue to dump things in my garden too.
But these are two separate properties, two separate issues in the same area.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it would be, I think it could be, it is reasonable at this point to tell 476 that they're no longer responsible for this piece of land. We had previously thought, as far as I understand, that the residents of 472 were mowing beyond their property line. And I think we now have sufficient evidence based on the property pin that they are just mowing to their property line, though they are mowing an intermittent stream.
That's the issue.
So I think we are comfortable, at least it seems as though the evidence is there from my perspective to let them know that we're no longer holding you accountable for the mowing that's occurring on your neighbor's property. But we may want to revisit it in the spring to remind them or to suggest a certain number of plantings within their strip of vegetated material, close to the stumps perhaps.
Does it say how many were required?
They were required to submit a restoration plan. They never really did. The commission approved. It's been sort of piecemeal. There wasn't a direct, like, you have to plant these many trees and they have to be these kinds.
So my memory is that, correct me if I'm wrong, from another meeting, was that part of 472 being put out and wanting to keep mowing was because the original reason 476 cut down the trees is because one of their tree limbs fell on 472's house.
Yes.
And they don't want the trees to grow back because they don't want to have more trees falling.
Yes.
So they want, their mowing is a way to control tree growth.
The number one reason that they've spoken about the mowing has been about ticks and not wanting tick encroachment on their fence line.
You could get some new guinea hen.
Or beneficial nematodes.
I don't, right.
Or possums.
It is a bit of a mess.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. And I think, I think the commission and Cassie was all acting within the best knowledge that they had, assuming that the plan as written was correct.
Correct.
No one checked the property pin. Why would you?
Is there a responsibility to add to the map? For 476 or to, I guess that would be their responsibility.
Right. And I guess I will say that the residents of 472 have claimed that the stream has moved. They claim that the DPW moved.
Yes, they claim that they removed material with a backhoe basically and moved it.
I wasn't able to find any evidence of that in the field, nor do I think the evidence of the location of the catch basin points in that direction.
How much would they have moved it though? Like those are big stumps,
Right.
When did the DPW work happen? Like
it happened in 2019 prior to the stump removal. I think that the claim from the
Prior to the tree removal?
Sorry, yeah,
Yes.
prior to the tree removal. Thank you. The claim on the part of 476, as far as I can understand it, is that apologies, we'll get there in a sec. Is that it moved, is that it was originally on the other side of the trees in 476's property. And then it was removed due to
But the
piling.
crane doesn't really show that either. It's hard to, when you're there, it just doesn't look like it was there ever,
Right.
It looks like it's always been here.
Moved, wouldn't they still be in buffer zone? They'd still be
Yes,
mowing
and
and dumping in buffer zone?
well, and what's relevant is that it's the hydrologic connection, right? The stream is the hydrologic connection between the upper DPW and the catch basin, which means it's jurisdictional regardless of whether or not it's moved. The buffer zone gets challenging here, right? Because their whole lawn is in buffer zone with this intermittent stream, and we're not going to tell them they can't.
Yeah, the lawn's
Continue
already
maintaining their
established,
lawn.
right? So the lawn's already established.
Do any of the commissioners have advice on how to proceed?
It's just a confusing situation.
I don't know. I guess I'm confused by that we're letting them mow their lawn, which is in buffer zone.
Well, it's an established lawn, so it's grandfathered in that they can mow in their fenced in backyard.
I guess I kind of get that, but nobody else as far as I know, if we were to look at this sort of compared to everybody else's property in town who wanted to mow in buffer zone.
Goes on everywhere.
It's only if they were trying to build a new house and establish a lawn, then the buffer zone question around the lawn would be relevant. But given that this was an established house, this house was here prior to Bernie's subdivision, prior to the stream becoming jurisdictional. And I think 65 Love Field's actually a great example, Commissioner Carr, of he was allowed to maintain the same lawn footprint
because that was the lawn
of the previous house, even though he was building a new house.
Right.
So I don't know what to do with it right now. I think if we just get them to not throw grass clippings over the fence into the swale.
We've been trying.
Yes.
We've really been trying. I'm not sure.
So 472 has the season assessed.
Yeah, all three of them do.
Yeah.
That was what the commission decided to do a number of meetings ago, was issue that cease and desist to all the residents. And I did speak with the resident on the other side who we spoke, and he seemed much more amenable to just not mowing beyond his lawn line. And he was like,
That resident also came and.
yes, he came and met us.
Yeah.
Joe. Joseph, Joe.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like Jay was saying, I think there's other places in town where there's intermittent streams that just get mowed, and have been mowed for some time immemorial, and it seems implausible that like that would, I don't know, seems like that'd be dozens of truckloads of soil going out of there if it was the DPW doing it, seems extremely unlikely.
Well, DPW says that they didn't do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They just removed some vegetation, which we've seen the accumulation of vegetation in there. I'm not surprised that there would have been a substantial amount of vegetation that the DPW would have removed it in order to prevent jamming of the catch basin.
But yeah, if they stop mowing the swale and stop throwing grass clippings in it, they can mow their backyard up to the fence and that's life. I mean, that's the way it is, but I don't know.
I mean, is the commission looking to get confirmation from them that they will stop mowing their swale?
Well, what?
Want to
Maybe
run it
I'm
by
coming-
Julie at the next meeting and see what she thinks?
What are the reasons to not mow a swale from a Wetland Protection Act?
It slows the water as it moves through the intermittent stream, right? It'll slow the water, it'll clean the water. Vegetation will act as a filter force and a slowing force. But I do think it is relevant, just from being a practical commission, like this water is flowing into a catch basin, right? It's not flowing into a pristine wetland complex,
And it's
just downstream.
intermittent stream. It's not running all the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so, and they're not removing sod, so it's not like there'll be no vegetation. It's just shorter vegetation.
Right.
But the water adding grass. Well, I think stopping adding grass clippings seems like
It should be an easy one.
that should be
Because
like,
they can
yes,
put
you
it
need to
behind them. They
stop
don't need
that.
to put it there. They can put it in another location.
I guess the question is about the mowing more than.
And there's a question of precedent, but there's also a question, as Commissioner Butcher clarified, this is occurring in other places. We just happen to know this one is jurisdictional, or at least it was in 96.
And I mean, the fact of it is, we could say today, like, whatever, keep mowing your swale, keep mowing your stream, and then we forget about it, and then the commission changes over, and then the issue comes back up again, and it's like, oh, there's an unpermitted mowing of the stream, and it's
Right.
like, it's like, it's like the pond over by the Mount Tom, you come down 141, that pond comes up before a commission,
Right.
like every 2 years, like, oh my God, it comes out over the pond. It's like, yeah, I know. It's
It's
not.
under 10,000 square feet, by the way.
Exactly, it's not a
I can
pond.
get that figured
We
out.
don't, so, and this is like, this is a jurisdictional resource area. And so, like, if we just say, okay, keep mowing the swale, then they're gonna be at risk for the next group of commission membership to, or DEP, like DEP could issue an enforcement order. Probably it's an unpermitted, unpermitted activity. So maybe the answer is like, keep mowing your swale if you want, but there is nothing, there is nothing stopping anybody from enforcing against you, including us and or DEP,
And unless it
I-
went to
I-
DEP, we don't have any way to enforce anyway, like other than issuing an enforcement order.
And normally people want to work with us and
yeah.
But I wouldn't say
be
this,
good citizens, but
I wouldn't say these two do.
well, I know because they have different stories on what was real, so it's a little confusing.
Like, I guess I don't feel like it's worth our time, but like,
But if-
probably in their interest to stop, for when somebody does realize it's, worth their time.
Okay, I think that's a good approach. I'll put it in writing because I think it hasn't yet been in writing to these folks that this is fully jurisdictional, explaining why it's jurisdictional.
Mhm.
And saying that the commission believes, it's in your best interest to stop mowing your stream.
All right, let's give it a shot.
I think we should even say that you shouldn't be mowing your stream. And we're not gonna run over here and check every week, but eventually it might come back around
Right.
to you.
Yeah.
And somebody might try to enforce it at some point, so you're sort of putting yourself at risk. for future enforcement actions,
Right.
if you continue to mow it.
Okay.
And that's on you.
That's a good point.
So,
Pretty busy now, but something might have quieted.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing we can do which would indemnify them against somebody in the future taking offense. And so I think that understanding, they need to understand that.
Yeah,
Right.
we, back in my earlier days on the commission, we used to have that happen where there would have been some handshake agreement from at some point between, like somebody on the commission or commission chair or something like that and some property owner. And then it would become an enforcement thing, like 10 years or something.
Right.
It happened at least once, maybe twice.
That makes sense.
Is that the same people who need to plant trees?
No.
Oh,
So the residents who need to plant trees are 476, and I think I suggest that the commission tables this until similarly, like until April or until March.
Nothing's gonna happen now that's gonna make any sense, so.
And the commission invites them into a meeting and we can relate, because I think my understanding about the residents of 476 is that there's some confusion about what tree species to plant, how many, how big, how do we help them survive? So I think the commission could I think they are open and willing to work with the commission and would like to get this enforcement order closed.
Okay.
So
do we keep them on? We close the enforcement order, but do we keep them on the list?
no, well,
I
we
don't
won't
think we
close the
close it
enforcement.
now.
We'll keep it open.
Oh, okay. We'll just table it.
Does March?
March or April, but we'll say March and then we can plant in April.
Sounds good.
Okay. Right.
Now you could negotiate pieces of the lease.
Now, go what?
Negotiate pieces of the lease.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Let's not go there.
The next thing I have for you is under open space updates.
Is what?
Under open space updates, Echodale West. And I just have an update from Chris Politan, and he stated that when we were out at Echodale Orchard, he noticed some infrequent areas that would benefit from a cut stem dormant season application along the edges. And he wants to do it pro bono as an apology to getting off track. And he would like to, he says, I'll anticipate we'll use loppers, a manual tree saw, and a small electric chainsaw. This is important to get those larger plants that produce seed, and that he'd like to do it after Commissioner Ryan has an opportunity to mow.
I spoke with Russell from Parker Orchard this weekend and told him that I'll be there in the next 2 weeks so that if he hears things being crashed and exploding, then he knows what's going on and he's fine with it. So he'll be happy to get it straightened out. I did tell him this is the first pass, and then they'll come in and do the invasives after that. So he's happy.
Great. Okay, no updates on B, 385, Main Street CR. But my update for C is that I did meet with a group of mountain bikers, including ones who were originally worked on the project back in 2020 when it was originally proposed as a planning project, and the commission and CPA funds were granted for it. There's, I'd say, a solid amount of energy to get this project moving again, and that they hope to present an update for the commission and also just some thoughts at the December 2nd meeting.
Oh, good. I was just out there this weekend and they have leaf blown all of the trails.
Right.
And luckily there's been no rain, but it is sort of like a recipe
Erosion.
for erosion.
Okay.
Are they proposing to come to the December 2nd meeting?
They're going to come to the December 2nd meeting. Yeah. Including a city councilor is on this project as well.
Should we move upstairs next?
I don't know. Maybe. We'll cross that bridge as we get closer.
Today.
Yeah.
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 I have a feeling you're gonna have the Tasty Top crowd here again.
Yeah.
You may.
So we may want to be upstairs. Okay. I think it depends a little bit on what we receive as from what progresses.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't have a lot of updates as we roll down active projects, I can tell you that, 1 Ferry Street, and numbering got messed up, 1 Ferry Street, track 1, I have alerted them that their order of conditions is expiring. They know, they have not submitted a request for an extension yet. Coming down to, 108 Oliver, get the lettering on that.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
There it is.
Don't do that fast. I couldn't even find I.
108 Oliver has requested a 1-year extension, or no, excuse me, a 2-year extension. I suggested that he do that to get an extension till after his replication area is supposed to show. It will be, considered revegetating. Sorry, we're getting late. Let me get that
So
extension
he's
pulled up.
aware that to.
Yes, he's aware not to mow. We've had some conversations about invasive species and what those mean. This is his request. And I think this might be in a place where I would maybe advise the commission. So while 65 Love Field, the commission was as previously like willing to issue a partial certificate of compliance after just 1 vegetation report. This might be a good example of actually just to wait on the overall, just not to issue any kind of partial certificate of compliance, but wait to issue the full certificate of compliance until we can see that that mitigation area, that restoration area is actually performing.
Do we need a motion to continue it for 2 years or
To grant an extension.
For 2
Yeah.
years?
Motion to grant a 2-year extension
Second.
for 108 Oliver Street.
Roll call, Carr,
Aye.
your August, Weeks, Butcher.
Aye.
Motion carries. So we're gonna extend that for 2 years.
We just do that to be neat. Is there like a legal rule that you're not?
Grass person, do it like that.
Okay. Got it. Just wanted to make sure it was.
Except for my signature.
Now he's making fun of his own signature.
Hey.
Do the commissioners like signing in person? Is that how typically it was done with Cassie or was she?
Well, before pandemic, it was always in person. Then during pandemic, it was signed a thing that says you can sign anything and that's pretty much it.
You can sign my checks.
Do whatever. Yeah, whatever.
That's still active for that.
It is.
It's still active,
The commission grants your 3-year extension to it.
I like signing in person.
Okay.
So.
I mean, it requires you
Makes
to
me feel
have,
like we did
It just means, she's got to scan stuff and, more.
Oh.
well, it means that I have to have the form ready to go too.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
right,
okay.
right.
Well, if it's easier for you.
And along with my black spotted white shirt, grass when I get home.
I don't need to make her worse than you. Because I don't always get what I want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's kind of old school.
Okay. All right, moving down the line, 50 Florence Solar, Beacon Solar. That letter. They are, they let me know that they completed the plantings, as the commission knew, and I will be visiting the site, before the next meeting.
Beautiful.
To, and they said that the vegetation is, that the ground is stable under the final array as well. So they're moving towards a certificate of compliance. But,
Oh, boy.
Sorry.
No, do you want to say, do you want to, I didn't catch it.
No,
It's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
You don't want to know.
All right. No more updates. Everything else we've done so far.
Done most things.
You're down to general business. So I have the meeting minutes. Yeah. I have the meeting minutes on the table for you with Commissioner August revisions.
Did you send them? I didn't see them.
They were in the first updates email.
Yeah, I didn't see them either, so I did not read them.
I didn't read them either.
So maybe
I
we should,
sent them, right?
I
found.
I
you
can-
found,
I-
well,
They were on the ongoing.
okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
missed it, so I did not read them. So if we want to just table that to next time, that's okay. But make sure you can see them.
I will see them.
Okay,
I
good.
usually always read them in advance.
We'll go back and
just
look.
to-
I apologize if
No problem. It's Al saw them. Deborah
And,
saw
and
them.
I would be fine. I mean, if Deborah read them,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're
But I'm
fine.
not sure we can do that.
Trust her.
I think
right?
per the meeting law, I mean, four
Because she said
commissioners
they're
need to
okay.
review it.
Yeah, I think legally we have to read them.
Yeah, I would like to. I guess I would like to.
Okay, so we'll table those. The ordinance continues. We're really working on it.
Okay, no.
It's coming.
Hey, you've been busy.
Does
Yeah,
does the
please.
ordinance draft, give, I'm sure it probably does give us, I don't know what the word is at all, but like the ability to issue fines, tickets, get the cops to go on the sites with us and things like that.
Yeah, it beefs up the enforcement mechanisms, including with fines. Also it adds a number of filing fees, including for expired certain orders of condition. So folks coming for expired certificates of compliance will now have to pay a fee, which we're hoping will actually trigger a bunch of people to check their deeds and come in before the ordinance goes into effect. Once it's finally through the revision. That's my personal goal. That will get us a flood of outstanding orders.
Okay.
But anyways.
We should be careful what we wish for.
But just to, I guess, like show our hand a little bit on the ordinance as we keep moving. I think, in the next couple of months, the ordinance draft will be shared with the commissioners. And then I suspect the commissioners will be reviewing it in smaller groups to have discussion, not in a public hearing. And there will, of course, be public hearings on the
And it's still a city
on the
council
draft.
thing also.
Of course, yeah. So I'll have to make this way all the way through city council. And
That'll be
yeah,
exciting.
there'll be a number of elements, but that's
And when
forthcoming.
is the next meeting?
The next meeting is next Monday, 11:25 of the subcommittee. That's not a public hearing. That's the subcommittee will meet. Okay, we already did C. We're coming down to D, 0 Glendale Street. So the situation here is that at the meeting where you had no agent, August 12th meeting, the commission issued a negative DOA under the agricultural exemption. So this was about clearing catch basins, agricultural property. DPW had a longstanding agreement to do it.
Yeah.
So the DPW who's clearing the catch basins is inquiring if in 3 years, when the DOA expires, if they can continue to do that clearing under their bundled NOI. So their bundled NOI, I'm just gonna
They
throw
want us
up.
to answer that now.
Can we just get it added to the bundle?
You just say, I'm just gonna throw up. That bad.
So this is what the bundled NOI looks
Check
like.
that for minutes.
So to me, it seems like, so here's the issue, is that to me, it seems like it would fit under 3 here, catch basin clearing. But the commission stated it was exempt under the agricultural exemption, which DPW doesn't typically deal with.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're kind of doing it as a favor to her.
Yeah.
Hold on, what? So we said it was exempt under the agricultural exemption, right?
So
Precisely.
it's
But
not
that,
like city, they're not clearing a city thing, they're clearing a private
a
thing
private thing.
that
Yep,
is exempt under the.
exactly. But they have agreed to clear it in perpetuity. And or I don't know if exactly in perpetuity, but for a long time.
Right.
And the DOA only extends for 3 years. So that ruling of it being an agricultural exemption,
What does the DOA stand for?
determination of applicability.
Oh,
I mean, we can imagine that if it appeared before the commission again, the commission would issue the same DOA
Right.
under the agricultural exemption.
Mhm.
But the DPW essentially just wanted to confirm that they're not going to have to come up before the commission again.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Why is the DPW clearing something on private land?
It's a great question. Does any of the commissioners remember from the 8/12 meeting?
Wasn't it something like,
It affected,
It was
somehow
coming
it
down.
affected city land.
yeah.
Mhm.
I don't
Here is
remember
the,
exactly.
here are the minutes from that meeting.
You go, Eden.
And do we know who the property
You were
owner
ready
is?
for this.
The Lorenz,
Lawrence.
the Lawrence.
Okay.
So these are the minutes from that meeting.
And what is it?
Can you read? You want me to read it aloud? Yeah.
Or just read the section that relates to that.
So
Storm drains, they didn't have any. The drains are connected via a pipe which flows into a canal which discharges into the Manhan River.
oh, this is interesting.
yeah, so, but I think basically the DPW built this stuff without getting an easement from the property owner.
Oh,
And so, now the property owners basically like, you gonna maintain this stuff or what?
Yeah, they were
That makes
installed,
sense.
Yeah.
they were
Okay.
installed by
Yeah.
the DPW many years ago to catch water from the Oak Ridge subdivision.
But I will say no.
I guess if for any reason the Lawrence sold the property and they didn't want the DPW to come and clean it, and the DPW came and did it anyway and said, well, we have a bundled order, would we be in any way liable for deciding something for a private landowner?
I don't think so, but I'm also noticing that says here that the DPW has agreed as a one-time courtesy.
Yeah.
So that's making me wonder why they
Why
actually
are they
need to
think they're
know
gonna
for 3
be-
years down the line.
Right. So maybe we should ask them that, why,
Yeah,
why
I can
it's,
follow up with Greg about that.
see what's, point this out to him and
Yeah.
say, what,
You're not gonna be, the DOA is issued for 3 years, so any work you
Right.
do that's under the agricultural, that's about keeping this land in agricultural use under the practice of clearing these catch basins is fully covered by the agricultural exemption that the commission issued in the DOA. But why, if this was a one-time courtesy, why do we need to go back 3 years later?
right,
And by then, like, somebody else might own it and might not use it for agriculture anymore.
Well, then the agricultural exemption would no longer
go
apply,
away.
which is a good point about giving the DPW.
It's under an APR.
It's APR
It's
also,
under an
yeah.
APR.
There's an active- They're under an obligation to use it.
To keep it in agricultural.
And I don't think they're going anywhere.
They've been property owners for a long time.
Yes.
Does that seem like an appropriate next step, Mission, to check in with Greg about?
Sure, just throw that at him and see what he says.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I kind of feel like in a true farming community, there's probably exempt activities that happen all the time
Correct.
without RDAs, you know? And probably in Easthampton, there are agriculturally exempt activities that happen all the time without RDAs.
If the Lords were gonna do this themselves, they
It
could
would
probably
be
just do
exempt
it.
without an RDA.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's a
Yeah.
farm.
Yeah, so I guess it's since the DPW is doing. it.
That's the only catch.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll check in with Greg about why this needs to occur. Or why he's planning on doing it after 3 years. Okay. But the last item on the agenda, and it's deciding our calendar for 2026. So there's a calendar on the table. I'll project it though. I came up with 2 possible calendars. That are written according to our typical second and fourth Monday schedule. Did I say 2026? 2025.
25.
Yeah. Written according to our typical Monday 6 p.m. second and fourth Mondays schedule, except when they've been adjusted to accommodate holidays. The reason I wrote 2 is that the first one allows there to be 2 meetings in May, which means there's 2 meetings every month other than October. This year we did have 2 meetings in October, but only 1 in November. The second option has only 1 meeting in May, but it has 3 weeks on either side of the May meeting. So there's 3 weeks between April 28th and May 19th, and 3 weeks between May 19th and June 9th. However, on the other side, the one with 2 meetings in May, we only have a week between the April 28th meeting and the May 5th meeting.
Yeah, that may not make sense to get that close.
But that's when we have the most people
Might
coming.
be the most things are happening in that time of year.
So one thought that I was maybe thinking is that we take the calendar with 2 May meetings, but then know that if things are looking pretty stable, we can always cancel a meeting. So you could cancel the May 5th meeting, could be a meeting that is canceled if applications are slow and if there's not things for the commission to discuss.
Sounds good.
And I think that's a good approach. Nobody is going to argue with canceling a meeting.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Does anyone argue with having 2 meetings weeks back to back?
If we have nothing to talk about, that's the only reason that it could be an issue. Because it's not, if we decide something on April 28th, the person that we're talking to doesn't have time to respond for the next meeting, so.
Right.
It depends. Can we have a 2-hour meeting on each of those weeks instead of a 3-hour meeting? 3 or 4-hour
Well, that's
meeting?
a possibility. Do half the agenda on one.
If we had 2 meetings in a row, but they were
Shorter.
not mammoth meetings, I would prefer.
Well, that's
This 1 meeting in a month thing was really challenging. I really appreciate all of your patience and commitment throughout this process.
Plus you gave us a lot of homework too.
I know, I give you a lot of homework, and then I kept you here for a 3-hour meeting. So did the commissioners want to go with the first calendar? Does anyone have any other, obviously we only need 4 of you to make a quorum. So if you have conflicts, that's perfectly fine.
I don't plan that far.
Yeah, too far.
Who can't find them?
No one notices a holiday I missed. I did check it against the state holidays.
You wanted to resend the minutes? Looking for the minutes for the.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe having the 2 meetings that close together. I don't know. I think it might just be too many meetings that time of year.
Right.
Yeah. I would prefer to not have 1 meeting right after 1 meeting.
Sure.
Yes, right. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
it's perfectly
The
understandable.
minutes were in a different place than I was used to.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
Thank you for
Good
coming.
night.
Have a nice night. Okay, let me look at the calendar really quickly. Like, would it be possible to? Is there any other way to get two May meetings in?
Did we have?
No,
two May
this is the
meetings?
problem. Yeah, I recall this is that if we did so the 5th is the first May meeting. The 12th and the 26th would be the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month, but the 26th, of course, is Memorial Day.
Right, okay, that's the problem.
The other option could be is the commission could meet on a different day of the week.
No.
No. Okay. I apologize for suggesting it.
Cause too much confusion.
So
I honestly don't care that much, so.
I'm good with the first. I vote for the first, but I don't really.
And we can change it.
Yeah.
we really truly can't cancel a meeting. There's no penalty.
They don't dock your pay.
No, you folks are an
yet.
incredibly committed commission, and I really appreciate that. Okay.
Did Julie have a comment?
Julie did not provide a comment, but I'm not sure she got an opportunity to look at it.
Yeah.
We can discuss it at the next meeting.
Let's do that then.
All right.
Would you be willing to send this around?
Yes,
please?
absolutely.
Sure.
It is attached in the ongoing projects
Ah, okay.
document. Thank you.
Not a hint.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Okay, that is all I have for you, commissioners.
Nice. Garrett, have a good night.
Garrett, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you.
I think I gotta show up every once in a while.
Appreciate it.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconds. Commissioner Weeks, roll call, Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye. Yes, you're
Commissioner
sure.
Buttrick.
Aye.
Motion carries.
It is 8:59.
8:59 is passed.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.